Coming up first at 6, the Prime Minister responding to critics over the terminations of 3 sitting members of Parliament yesterday. Car dealers say the government should have given more consideration before reducing duty on cars. And officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force getting new equipment to fight the war on crime.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, first at 6. This portion of the news is brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis, and this is the Bahamas Tonight, first at 6. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Hubert Minnis commenting on the decision taken against 4 parliamentary secretaries, Travis Robinson and Vaughn Miller, and Frederick McAlpine as chairman of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas. A cabinet statement yesterday indicated that under the cabinet and ministry provisions, parliamentary secretaries, like cabinet ministers, are bound as a condition of their continuance in office to support government decisions in public. And in light of the action taken against the 3, the Prime Minister had this to say.
I cannot allow my personal views to get into democracy. We have a parliamentary procedure, and I must adhere, respect, and ensure that the parliamentary procedure lives on and is honored and respected thoroughly. We are a democratic society. We practice the Westminster system, parliamentary procedure, and I have certain obligations, and I will ensure that I adhere to my obligations. I'm committed to that, and I must ensure that democracy must always be in the forefront, and democracy must always prevail. I have a responsibility, and I will not shun away from my responsibility.
Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Attorney General, Senator the Honorable Carl Bethel, speaking more to the Westminster system in the upper chamber this morning. He noted that members of Parliament speak for constituents on the floor of Parliament, but under the Westminster system, they are required to vote with the governing party they were elected under once the whip is on. Senator Bethel says every MP has the right to free speech, noting that he has had occasions to speak for his constituents against the government, but fell in line when it came to voting with government. Bethel says the Westminster system under which the Bahamas operates is efficient, despite some suggesting changing the system.
You have too much democracy in a congressional system where entrenched vested interests can frustrate the will of the people by parliamentary inertia. And then you have a dictatorship of the people, or whatever it is that makes up a communist system, where it's one party rule. Nobody wants that in their right minds. And so we're left with this hybrid system called the Westminster system, which, I think I have to accept Sir Winston Churchill's definition of Westminster democracy. It's a lousy system, but it's the best yet devised. Better than any of the rest.
Residents in the Bain and Grantstown constituency thanked their Member of Parliament Travis Robinson yesterday for taking a firm stand on their behalf on the proposed increase in value-added tax. We caught up with the young politician as he visited with residents yesterday.
I'm just doing a walkabout and just to hear what the people have to say after I would have voted on their behalf. Well, there are many questions from persons who would have questions. Media houses have reached out to me, but like I say, any questions I would answer at that time after I give an official response.
Also have some feedback tonight to the Prime Minister's decision to revoke the positions of those parliamentary secretaries and the Hotel Corporation chairman. While not in agreement with the increase to value-added tax, this resident believes that the Prime Minister made the right move.
It's just like you run your own house. If your kids ain't will rebel with you, then you have to do what you have to do. You have to get them out, right? So if they speak against him, then he have no other choice but to keep his place in order. But he have a rights and ministers have a rights. But further on, minister did said if anybody get out of line, he'll have to terminate them.
Members of the auto industry expressing concern about the impact of the 12% value-added tax on the sector. Fred Albury, president of the Bahamas Motor Dealers Association and Automall, says the next tax structure will create inequity in the auto industry.
Dealers who have 1.5 liter engines and less will have to take a tremendous loss on taxes that was already paid at 65%. So we're hoping that this can be some sort of offset with the government regarding that. We've been attempting to get to them about it. 1.5 liter breakpoint also is going to impact the new car industry in that it's going to be in favor of a few dealers and at the detriment of a few others.
Andrew Barr, sales managing director for Friendly Motors, believes the government should have also given consideration to reducing the duty on motorcycles and scooters.
In islands like Bermuda, the main source of transportation is scooters and motorcycles. So, you know, right now you pay more duty on a motorcycle or on a scooter than you do on a car. So they did reduce this duty on electric scooters, but I'm not sure that many people drive them. But in the area of motorcycles and scooters, they could have reduced the duty on that and encouraged that, which would have allowed more fuel-efficient means of transportation to a lot of people.
And still to come, the police getting additional resources. You're watching the news leader first at 6.
Together, we laugh more, we discover more, we dream more. Together, we connect more, we cheer more. Grab life by the bundle and fuel your passion for your favorite things. Enhance your entertainment experience with Flow Evo, internet and home phone in one simple package. The hotter the bundle, the more you get. Grab life by the bundle with BTC.
This is the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is Commonwealth Bank. And no matter how, no matter where, no matter what, Commonwealth Bank is here for you. Commonwealth Bank, everything we do it for you.
Here comes the lucky guy who won a date with Fanshawn to his prom.
KFC got the big meal, freshly handmade every day for real.
Made fresh every day?
What I say, what you take? KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a real big deal. KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a real
now that's a big deal.
Hey, it's a real big deal. Hey, it's a real big deal.
What's better than a cheesy, hot, delicious one-topping Pizza Hut pizza? 2 cheesy, hot, delicious one-topping Pizza Hut pizzas. That's what! Now get 2 large one-topping pizzas for only $20 VAT included at Pizza Hut Saunders Beach or Prince Charles Drive. Call 603-3333 or visit pizzahutnassau.com. Pizza Hut, for the love of pizza.
This portion of the news brought to you by Commonwealth Bank, your leader in personal banking.
Several parliamentarians attending the 43rd Regional Conference of the Caribbean, the Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, which opened earlier this week at the Grand Cayman Marriott Beach Resort in the Cayman Islands. Representing the Bahamas is the Member of Parliament for Central and South Abaco, James Albury, the Member of Parliament for Central and South Andros, Picewell Forbes, Member of Parliament for Tall Pines, John Saunders, and the Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe. The parliamentarians met with the acting governor of the Cayman Islands, the Honorable Franz Manderson. Bahamas Consul General to Washington, D.C., Theo Neely, led his first mission to Chicago, Illinois last month. The primary focus of the mission was for Bahamian government officials to connect, strengthen, and establish new relationships with Illinois state government officials, key business leaders, and educational stakeholders to create more opportunities for the Bahamas. Consul General Neely and his delegation met with Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, officials of the University of Chicago, Chicago, the city's Chamber of Commerce, as well as port and airline representatives. The Consul General was also hosted to a reception to meet with Bahamians living in the Chicago area. The Traffic Division of the Royal Bahamas Police Force getting 10 new motorcycles today. The cycles are expected to help police continue to step up efforts to fight crime and crack down on traffic violators across the country. Police Commissioner Anthony Ferguson says the additional bikes will help bring calm to our streets.
Providence, they will have a substantial amount, I think in excess of 10 brand new motorcycles. Grand Bahama will have in excess of about 6. We have Abaco. Recently there have been lots of serious traffic accidents on Abaco. I'm also issuing motorcycles to Exuma. I'm issuing motorcycles to Cat Island, Long Island, and Eleuthera.
The police commissioner had this warning for traffic violators.
Those persons who like to be speeding on those little short highway, I'm not going to tell you where because so you'll be surprised. The element of surprise will be everywhere. Anytime you go over the speed limit, and if you look at the amount of cycles that I have, that I'm issuing today and what we have, it tells you that the elements of surprise will no doubt be there. And every time you go over the speed limit, I expect to see the increase and traffic violators being ticketed, and there'll be no exception. You go to court and you pay.
The Royal Bahamas Defense Force hosting the final phase of the military training initiative called Trade Winds at the South Beach Pools today. The multinational drill is sponsored by the United States and is designed to improve security cooperation between Caribbean nations. We spoke to Commodore of the Defense Force, Commodore Tellis Bethel.
What you saw was a culmination of that exercise, focusing on a counter-terrorist group operating in the Bahamas, and of course troops were deployed to capture them. That consisted of both air, land and sea operations, and certainly we saw the Black Hawk helicopters that came in. We're also appreciative for the assistance that we received, not only from our U.S. sponsors, but also from our international partners, France, Canada, Mexico, who all participated in the exercise and certainly helped it to be a great success.
Bethel said discussions will be held moving forward on the learning points of the exercise. Deputy Commander for the United States Southern Command, Robert Brayan, provided further details.
Today, you had all the services getting together. You had intelligence to provide the situational awareness so that the attack could happen and hit the terrorist cells. You had the Navy that was out there in their boats to try and thwart anybody trying to get out. You had multi-countries coming in and taking out the bad guys. And then lastly, you saw some Army vehicles come in. You saw 2 helicopters to provide extraction. So it was just an incredible event to see not only the countries come together, but all the services come together to make it happen.
The impact of bullying, conflict resolution issues, and the loss of a parent turned 17-year-old Raven Culmer out of control, leaving her family with the only option to enroll her into the Shock Treatment for Girls program. And it was that intervention that gave Culmer the push she needed to make that positive turnaround. Culmer not only graduated from high school recently, but is on her way to university to pursue further academic studies.
To graduate high school with my diploma, I feel so relieved.
Failure is definitely not an option for 17-year-old Alpha Preparatory Academy graduate Raven Culmer. You see, Culmer lost her father suddenly at 8 years old, and her mother, Petra Culmer, had to struggle to make ends meet for her and her young sibling. Raven turned to a life of violence and was later enrolled in the Shock Treatment program for at-risk young girls, a program Raven says changed her life in a positive way.
In grade 9, I was sent to Shock Treatment with Mr. Reed, because I was fighting a lot after being bullied about my eyes and where I live. And plenty persons, they thought that because I was on shock treatment, I wouldn't have achieved nothing in life. I would have been like the regulars. My one auntie, who paid my entire school fee when I was almost about not to graduate.
Co-executive producer of Shock Treatment and social activist Carlos Reed says despite her past, he is proud of Raven's accomplishments so far, and he expects nothing but great things from her in the future.
I'm elated. I'm so proud of her seeing where she's come from, to be able to graduate and then next this summer going on to college. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that a lot of people have graduated that have gone through shock treatment. Shock treatment has worked for a lot of people.
Principal Sharon Fox says Raven was an exceptional student and received the highest score in mathematics in her graduating class. She encouraged Raven to never give up on her future goals.
Raven has really grown into the young lady she is academically. She always had an academic gift. However, it just needed to be polished. But Raven right now has reached a mark in her life through hard work, perseverance, and never giving up.
And Raven gave this advice to her peers.
You may be from Baintown, any other poor community. It's not where you start, it's where you're going to end.
Meanwhile, Raven plans to attend the University of the Bahamas in September to pursue a career in mathematics. Stay with us. Sports is up next. You're watching the News Leader first at 6.
That portion of the news was brought to you by Commonwealth Bank, the leader in personal banking services.
No matter what your goals are in life, you have to start somewhere. It all begins with Leno. Leno, bridging possibilities. Call us at 396-3225 or email info@lenobahamas.com.
If you've lost your visa, call the law office of Donette Russell Love PL. My full-service immigration firm can help you if you've been denied a visa due to deportation or removal, prior conviction or arrest while in the U.S., working without work authorization, or visa overstay. I may be able to help you get your visa privileges restored. Call my office today at 954-449-1833 or visit us at drusselllove.com.
ZNS Total Sports is brought to you by Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center.
Welcome to sports, everybody. We're on the eve of the 2018 NBA Draft, and the 242 expected to take center stage tomorrow night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Our Charles Fisher in the Big Apple already ahead of what will surely be an historic night for the Bahamas.
Yes, good evening, John. It's been a busy day here in New York for the ZNS Total Sports team. Cameraman Ashley Taylor and I, we had a chance to speak with DeAndre Ayton. No secret, he will be the #1 pick tomorrow by the Phoenix Suns, 7 o'clock on ESPN. You can watch it. But today, he was asked the question if he drops the #2, playing with Buddy Hield.
Yeah, that would be another thing. You know, Buddy is in Sacramento, and, you know, we're both Bahamians, both from the same country. That's another thing we can start. Another two-man game we can do. Bro, watching Buddy Hield and, you know, Tum Tum in college is just, you know, they really represent me. You know, to be a part of that too is just a huge blessing.
When you go #1 overall tomorrow, you'll be the first Bahamian to do that since Michael Thompson back in 1978. Have you thought about the fact that you'll be a national hero?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that yet. I mean, that's a huge honor, and you know, that's a big opportunity.
In Brooklyn, New York, covering the NBA draft for ZNS Total Sports, along with my cameraman Ashley Taylor, I'm Charles Fisher. Stay tuned tomorrow. Yes, the NBA draft. DeAndre Ayton, the #1 pick. Yes, indeed.
Semi-final round action, the FIBA Women's Caribbean Cup on the floor this evening in Suriname. Team Bahamas taking on the Dominican Republic in a little while with a win needed there to qualify and move on. From the pro basketball ranks, it's win or go home tonight for Tavario Miller and Los Mushis in the Mexican League quarterfinals. They trail Mazatlan 2-0, and they will be looking to avoid the sweep. On to the minor league baseball diamond now. The Midwestern League All-Star game played last night. Chavez Young and the East All-Stars nipping Jazz Rado Chisholm and the West All-Stars 3-2. Young playing the entire game in center field, going 0 for 4. Chisholm came off the bench. He finished the game at short, going 1 for 2. Elsewhere, Anthony Seymour was 1 for 3, 2 runs batted in, and a stolen base for Jupiter in a 5-3 win over his old team, the Florida Fire Frogs. Lucius Fox also 1 for 3 last night for Charlotte in a 3-2 loss to Lakeland. Shamiko Smith pitched 2 innings of relief, giving up 2 runs on 2 hits with 2 strikeouts. For Grand Junction, they won 7-4 over Idaho Falls. In the Dominican League, Devon Mackey 1 for 3, hitting his first home run of the season as the A's fell to the Rays 2-1. Keith Ron Moss, he was hitless. He went 0 for 3 with a run scored. The Rangers losing to the Indians 5-2. Meantime, in the Gulf Coast League, Larry Alcim 2 for 4 for the Pirates in a 7-1 loss to the Braves. Bahamas Aquatics Federation Swim Nationals closing out last night at the Betty Kelly Kenning National Aquatic Center. Mako Aquatics making a big splash, winning with 1,200 points. Alpha Aquatics was a distant second with 502. The Grand Bahama Tritons third with 497. Barracudas fourth, 440. Freeport Aquatics finished 5th with 294, Dolphins 6th with 285, St. Anne 7th, 76, and Lyford Key rounding out the top 8 with 27 points. And that is your first look at sports. Don't go anywhere. First at 6 is back after the break.
ZNS Total Sports is brought to you by Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center.
Imagine you have Hollywood at your command. Introducing Flow Evo.
Red cheese, gold rings, all black, everything creeping through the night.
Anywhere you are,
Big girls don't scream hard like Halloween, make me feel alive.
there's a world of entertainment here, and you run the show. Flow Evo.
Hey, have you heard? ZNS is everywhere you are when you download the new ZNS app. Whether you're on the move or just kicking back. Miss something on the news? It's there. Want to keep up with a live update? It's there. Or just want to listen to your favorite station? It's there too. Download the app now from the App Store and Google Play Store.
Did you bring the thing?
What thing?
Protection.
Come on, man. You really want to ruin the moment with that?
I actually think it will help the moment. No worries. Now we can continue. Next time, step your game up.
When a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, it's extremely important to be prepared and know just what to do. Stay informed about the storm's path by listening to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Check emergency food and household supplies. Be sure you have extra batteries for your flashlights and radios. Bring in outdoor things like lawn furniture and garden tools. Anchor objects that cannot be brought inside. Secure buildings by closing and boarding up windows. Remove outside antennas and satellite dishes. Turn refrigerators and freezers to the coldest settings. Open only when absolutely necessary and close quickly. Purchase ice and store it in an ice chest. Keep drinking water in clean jugs and bottles. Clean your bathtub with bleach and fill it with water for washing and flushing, not for drinking, making sure to keep the bathroom door closed so small children cannot access the filled tub. Do not go out to videotape or take photos of the storm. Stay inside and take those pictures from where it's safe and dry. There's no harm in being overly cautious where a hurricane is concerned. It is truly better to be safe than sorry. This public service announcement has been brought to you by the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas in conjunction with the National Emergency Management Agency.
Minister De Aguilar, now the Bahamas residents can fly or cruise free to the Family Islands. What are your summer vacation plans?
I'm going to go to the Family Islands of the Bahamas to bring tourism back to our family of islands.
And there's no better time than now with the 2 Fly or Cruise Free promotion, where all residents of the Bahamas can fly or cruise free to the Family Islands from Nassau. Let's go. Refresh, reconnect, and unwind in the Family Islands. For details, go to bahamasresidents.com today.
My teacher say I have hate my yard, that I am no good, that I like to fight too much. Who does she think put it there? In my house, if you question Daddy, you get a black eye. In my house, a fist is power.
Let's talk. Call the Bahamas Crisis Center's free 24-hour hotline at 328-0922. Sometimes a conversation can change a life.
In regional news this Wednesday, the Caribbean Development Bank and the Pan American Health Organization have signed an agreement to enhance capacity for mental health and psychosocial support in disaster management in the Caribbean. Experiences and lessons learned by the PAHO Health Emergencies team and key stakeholders from last year's hurricanes Irma and Maria will be incorporated in the project's implementation to ensure better preparedness. CDB and PAHO will contribute a combined total of approximately $470,000 towards the project. Director of Forensic Science Services at the Forensic Lab, Fernanda Henry, has disclosed that the forensic investigation into 4 suspicious deaths in St. Lucia earlier this year has finally concluded without publicly identifying the cause of death. In March, the Ministry of Health stated that the 4 persons who died plus 10 other persons from the Cooley Town area may have ingested a toxic substance. In other regional news, Public Health Minister Valda Lawrence warned senior employees to look out for police detectives and Finance Ministry internal auditors who will soon begin investigations into the misappropriation of funds and the blatant attempts to steal public funds. A release from the Ministry of Public Health said today, Lawrence said the police and officials from the Ministry of Finance will carry out open investigations into ongoing corrupt practices by staff members. And that's regional news tonight.
Time now for weather.
In our first look at weather, we're going to take you back to our satellite picture and show you that surface trough, which has been oscillating north and south across the northwest Bahamas, is now smack across Eleuthera, spreading into the capital and over Andros, and that produced the heavy showers we experienced during the afternoon hours. Outside of our studios, we are still under cloudy skies with some recent thunderstorms. Temperature at 77 degrees. Your relative humidity very rich at 94%. Winds out of the south at 5 miles per hour. Your barometric pressure 1,014.6 millibars. That's 29.95 inches, and it is falling. That's going to do it for your first look at weather at 6. Stay tuned, more weather is still to come.
Thanks a lot, Basil. And that's a look at news in the Bahamas tonight, first at 6. But don't go anywhere. News from the north is up next.
The Prime Minister on the record about the recent firings. The Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge receiving overwhelming support. And a 3-day blockchain conference is officially underway.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Topping the news, the nation's leader is speaking for the first time since terminating 3 members of his party from their government jobs. The positions were revoked yesterday, less than 24 hours after the 3 F&M MPs voted against the government's decision to increase value-added tax by some 4.5%. The nation's leader telling reporters on Grand's Bahama today that as Prime Minister, he has a responsibility to do what is right. Italia Hall explains.
The Prime Minister arrived on Grand Bahama today to officially open the blockchain conference. Now, our ZNS News team was waiting on the Prime Minister to get his comments on the terminations. Now, while he did not address each specific case, he said he was simply doing his job as Prime Minister. The 3 F&M MPs were given letters of termination from their government jobs. As a result, MP for Pine Ridge Frederick McAlpine is no longer the chairman of the Hotel Corporation. MP for Baines and Grandstown Travis Robinson Post as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation was revoked, and member of Parliament for Golden Isles Vaughn Miller's position as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Social Development was withdrawn. The nation's leader was asked about the firings, and he says that as Prime Minister, he has a responsibility to follow cabinet rules and regulations.
I cannot allow my personal views to get into democracy. We have a parliamentary procedure, and I must adhere, respect, and ensure that the parliamentary procedure lives on and is honored and respected thoroughly. We are a democratic society. We practice the Westminster system, parliamentary procedure, and I have certain obligations, and I will ensure that I adhere to my obligations. I'm committed to that, and I must ensure that democracy must always be in the forefront, and democracy must always prevail. I have a responsibility, and I will not shun away from my responsibility.
The budget was passed in the House of Assembly on Monday night and is currently before the Senate for debate. Once approved, the budget is expected to solidify the country's fiscal agenda for the next year. Prime Minister Minnis says this budget has everything to do with the future growth and development of the Bahamas.
I don't concentrate on just what is today. Sometimes one has to make difficult decisions today so that you can have a better tomorrow. And I focus more on tomorrow, but at the same time, ensuring that one has a great today.
But many Grand Bahamians continue to question the government's decision to levy an increase in value-added tax when the local economy continues to struggle.
The Bahamas were poised for 2.5% growth. There are many projects that are coming on stream very soon at Grand Bahama. And we made some decisions that we think would be better for the Bahamas. You see what is happening in Barbados, and I have said, and I would repeat again, I do not want to leave a Bahamas behind where a future Prime Minister on his first day in office must call some international financial agency for rescue. That is not fair to any future government, and it's my job to ensure that I place the Bahamas in the best possible footing for a future generation.
Now, the Prime Minister ended his interview by saying that he is committed to the people of Grand Bahama, and once Grand Bahama succeeds, the entire country will be successful. In the News Center for ZNS Network News, I'm Natalia Hall. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Natalia. Pine Ridge Member of Parliament Frederick McAlpine, one of the 3 MPs fired from their government jobs yesterday. He returned home last night with scores of supporters cheering him on. McAlpine says he was surprised and moved by the show of support and says he still maintains that his no vote to VAT was in the best interest of the Bahamian people.
The FNM and the Prime Minister can find me 50 times over. But what I feel here today and what I've seen here today makes me want to keep fighting.
Less than 24 hours after voting no to the 4.5% increase in VAT, Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge Frederick McAlpine was handed a letter by the Prime Minister relieving him of his duties as chairman of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas. That very same day, McAlpine returned home to Grand Bahama to a hero's welcome. During the process, 3 other Free National Movement parliamentarians also voted against the raise in VAT. The Pine Ridge MP says that he is proud they all voted for what they believe is in the best interest of the country, despite the repercussions.
There was a lot of pressure on us yesterday to change our votes, but we were determined that we were not going to change and that we were going to stand with the people in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We need the people to understand and recognize. We said it's about the people and it's the people's time. Well, why not let the people have their way and feel that they should have their say, okay, in their country? I want to see the small man given an opportunity to elevate in their own country. We're tired of having to always have to kowtow to others. We're tired of always having to be the person who has to be employed. Why can't we be the employers? Why, for the love of God, can you tell me how you could sell the Bahamian people's sand and make money and the rest of us with our mouths as if we're hungry? That's our sand. So if anybody's going to be paid, it ought to be the Bahamian people. So there's no way you're going to take our sand, you're going to take our money, you're going to take everything, our airspace, our oceans. It belongs to the people of the Bahamas. Why is it that a few people in this country can get rich off of what belongs to the people that God gave to us?
The Pine Ridge MP says that if the Prime Minister had raised VAT to 10% instead of 12%, he would have considered it a compromise. He adds that the economy of Grand Bahama is not growing and that residents cannot handle this raise.
Before you extend VAT, you should at least try to grow the economy. The economy has not grown. People are still unemployed. People are making $210 a week. And then you have to also understand, when I used to could go to the food store with $1, I now have to go with 88 cents. And so it is difficult. It is hard. And people do not know where the next dollar is coming from. People, you have households where only one person is working in the whole house to carry the whole house. And so it's very difficult. And to me, this is not about PLP, FNMs, and this is about Bahamians.
And going forward,
I remain in the FNM until they say otherwise. But as for me, I do not put party over country. My country first. It's God, country, and then party. And if the party is not going to go with the country, I will say to hell with the party. I'm sticking with the country.
Now, hundreds turned up at the Grand Bahama International Airport yesterday to support Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge, Frederick McAlpine. Residents Darren Cooper and Jennifer Ellis say they decided to head to the airport to show their full support for McAlpine after standing his ground and voting against the VAT increase.
We thank you for all the sacrifices that you've made for the people of Grand Bahama. And we just thought it was fitting that we meet you to the airport to show you that we support you and we're standing with you. And so that's why we're here today.
It's a hard pill to swallow. It's like taking a pill without water. And right now the economy needs to grow. We need some jobs. I mean, those mothers that are struggling, working for the hotel and only working 1 or 2 days, I shudder to think how they're making it.
Members of the religious community also were part of the crowd yesterday. Pastor Philip Monroe and Pastor Kenneth Fowler say they support McAlpine as a colleague, and they applaud the courage that he showed by sticking to his convictions. As it relates to the VAT increase,
it takes a lot of courage for any individual to take a stand against the majority vote, and he showed a great deal of courage and a great deal of boldness as far as the VAT increase is concerned. I feel that for Grand Bahama, the percentage increase, it's a bit too high, too fast.
Listen, we voted in the government to do what they think is best for us. At this time, Grand Bahama in particular, we're feeling the pinch here, and I know they know this. Deputy Prime Minister lives here. So I believe that he is doing also what he thinks is best. We think, or wish it had been further down the road, but I believe they are doing the best for the country as they see fit.
7 parliamentarians were not available to vote on the VAT increase and on the budget on Monday night. And ZNS News has learned that they were all out of the country on official government business. At the time of the vote, MP for Central Grand Bahama Aram Lewis and Minister of Works Desmond Bannister were in Hong Kong. MP for Long Island, Adrian Gibson, was in London, while MP for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe, MP for South Abaco, James Aubrey, MP for Tall Pines, Don Saunders, and MP for South Andros, Picewell Forbes, were in the Cayman Islands attending a parliamentary conference. In other news, the Office of the Prime Minister hosting a major conference here on Grand Bahama. The 3-day parley opened this morning at the Grand Lucayan Resort, focusing on the benefits of blockchain and cryptocurrency. Government officials believe this new technology will position Grand Bahama as a technology hub. The conference was officially opened by the nation's leader. Our Talia Hall was there.
Day one of the Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Conference attracted hundreds of international and local investors. Some 445 persons have registered to learn more about blockchain, as it is one of the fastest growing sectors in the technology field across the world. Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, officially opening the conference. He says the conference represents an important step towards the government's new mission for the country.
There is no reason why these new blockchain technology companies that have their eyes on global markets cannot have their base of operations here in the Bahamas. I do not think it would be too far-fetched for me to say that the next generation of Bahamian millionaires and possibly billionaires could earn their wealth in the technology sector. What we do here at this conference is the first step in that journey, a journey that we cannot accomplish alone, which is why our international friends and partners must play an integral and important role in all of this.
Minister of State for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Kwesi Thompson, says this event is one of the first recommendations that was made by the Grand Bahama Tech Steering Committee. He firmly believes that Grand Bahama is uniquely suited to become an internationally recognized tech hub, and come July 27th, the Office of the Prime Minister will embark on a new initiative with the Ministry of Education that seeks to benefit young people.
50 high school students in Grand Bahama and 100 high school students in Nassau will begin a first-of-its-kind high-tech summer training program, where over the next 3 summers and before they graduate high school, they will have obtained IT certifications.
President of the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce, Mick Holding, says for years now Grand Bahama has focused on the tourism and industrial sectors.
To add a third major sector helps to insulate us from the inevitable market fluctuations experienced from time to time in the other sectors. and brings much needed employment opportunities in this totally new area.
Alive is the title partner. Chief Alive Commercial Officer Gravat Brown says the company is at the forefront in helping to support all efforts to deepen the economic development of the island.
It is one of the reasons why we've welcomed this opportunity to dialogue as a telecom infrastructure partner in the needed discussion around continuing the advancement of technology and other forms of economic development, not only here in Grand Bahamas, but throughout the Greater Bahamas.
Now the conference will close out on Friday right here at the Grand Lucaine Resort. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Italia Hall.
Now to news from the court. 20-year-old J.C. Jeffrey Simmons of Pinedale, 8 Mile Rock, was arraigned before Magistrate Gwendolyn Codd on the charge of attempted murder. Simmons was not required to enter a plea, and bail was denied. The matter was adjourned to September 13th for a voluntary bill of indictment to be served. Simmons is accused of stabbing a 23-year-old man about the body in the area of a construction site in Pinedale 1 week ago. The victim, a resident of West End, remains hospitalized in stable condition. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Stay with us. There's more news right after this break.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Dolly Madison, Freeport's original home center.
It's time to come on down. Now to the plant nursery at Dolly Madison. They're loaded with indoor and outdoor plants, fruit trees, landscaping plants, flowering plants, herbs, and more at the plant nursery at Dolly Madison. And if you need advice, the friendly, courteous staff at Dolly Madison is there to assist. And don't forget to pick up your soil, fertilizers, and other accessories. Don't wait. Come on down. Now.
When you need a warm, filling meal, head to KFC for a hot, juicy, flaky chicken pot pie. Individual sized, freshly baked, chunky chicken pot pie loaded with tender pieces of delicious KFC chicken, green peas, hearty carrots, potatoes, and a thick and savory home-style sauce. Covered with a golden crust. Chicken pot pie. Available at all KFC restaurants in Freeport.
I'm Hugh Ferguson from Budget Pest Control. After 30 years in this industry, testing hundreds of pest control products, none has impressed me more than Vape. Vape 90-Day Mosquito Destroyer, Vape Aerosol, and Vape Mosquito Coil. Vape is the only spray that you will find in my house and my mother's house, and it should be the only one in yours. In pest control, there are only two names to remember, Vape and Budget Pest Control.
Stay informed on your local weather forecast this 2018 hurricane season. Your #1 news station, the ZNS Television Network. We've got you covered. Covering the Northern Bahamas, you're watching The Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Welcome back. Top achievers from each high school on Grand Bahama receiving partial scholarships from the Grand Bahama Port Authority. Each year, the GBPA assists students who are seeking higher education. Human Resources Manager Dr. Tulina Smith and President Ian Roll say this year they decided to do things a little different. A question and answer session was held with the recipients and their parents, where students had the opportunity to ask the port president personal questions.
Since the mid-1970s, the Grand Bahama Port Authority and group of companies have been offering tertiary-level scholarships to students from high school throughout Grand Bahama because the company believes in the great importance of higher education and the future development of Grand Bahama and the Bahamas. And so beginning in 2009, our president, Ian Roll, wanted to also ensure that the top achieving Bahamian student in each high school receives one of these partial scholarships.
This experience, I think, is better than the previous years. It's more intimate. And I think it's something that we're going to continue year after year. A more intimate setting where persons can engage me one-on-one and actually get certain things that they thought that they couldn't ask the president before. It was a great occasion for the truth to be told, even about the Grand Bahama Port Authority. So I congratulate all the young persons who achieved so much and have actually displayed so much discipline, because that's a key component of success as well.
The Department of Statistics celebrating 50 years of service to the country under the theme, Look How Far We've Come. A symposium luncheon was held this week at the Pelican Bay Resort, where heads of departments within the government sector made presentations about the use of statistics within their agencies. Acting Director at the Department of Statistics, Leona Wilson, says, over the years, the department has grown, and Bahamians are now understanding the role of the agency.
Official statistics help the policy makers as well as other persons to make informed decisions instead of making a decision based on your gut. You have the data to back it up, and as you have the data to monitor your performance. Certain projects that you would put in place, you monitor how well you're doing with those particular projects based on certain indicators.
Minister of State for Grand Bahama, Senator the Honorable Kwesi Thompson, congratulating the department for their 50 years of service. But he says, while it is good to have the national statistics, it is equally important to have information about Grand Bahama.
It's important to know how many people are actually unemployed in Freeport as opposed to what's happening in Nassau. It may be surprising to note for some people that within the period of May of 2017 and November of 2017, that in Grand Bahama, unemployment actually decreased. But unfortunately, if you ask the ordinary person on the street, in their mind, unemployment is probably going up sky high. But if you had the evidence and the facts, then you are able to make the right decisions. In fact, between that period of May of 2017 and November of 2017, you actually had over 1,000 additional persons employed in Grand Bahama during that period of time.
The Grand Bahama community has lost one of the pioneers in gospel music. Cedric Roll, founding member of the Gospel Chandeliers, passed away this past Saturday at the Rands Memorial Hospital at the age of 75. The Chandeliers was formed back in 1973 and performed songs like God Bless the Bahamas and Honesty is the Best Policy. Roll also performed with Jason Brooks and the Jasonnaires. To Ask the Doctor.
This is Ask the Doctor. I'm Dr. Monique Pratt. Pat asked, why do you feel so tired as you reach the age of about 55 and over? Your energy levels seem to diminish. What can you do? Pat, thanks, such a good question. There's a medical term for the lack of energy, which is anergia. And while some people may think slowing down and feeling fatigue is a normal part of the aging process, the truth is lack of energy is usually a sign that there may be a specific medical problem that needs to be addressed. Some medical disorders that can cause a lack of energy include heart and kidney dysfunction, arthritis, lung disease, anemia, and depression. Medical research has found a link between anergia and increased incidence of arthritis, sleep disorders, cardiovascular symptoms, and other health issues. So if you experience a lack of energy that begins to affect your normal daily activities or routine, don't accept it as a normal part of getting older. Make an appointment with your family doctor or visit your community clinic to rule out a serious medical condition. If you have other health-related questions, please drop it in my question box at the hospital or at any of our Grand Bahama community clinics. I'm Dr. Monique Pratt, and this has been Ask the Doctor.
Don't go away, a check on sports is up next.
More Makeup by Megan Coakley. When you want to look like a star. Phone 443-7979.
Bacardi, Jack Daniels, and Paragon Nights present Wild Weekend Takeover, featuring comedian DC Young Fly from Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out.
Bring that ass here, girl.
Friday, June 22nd at Social Affair Convention Center.
I bet you won't walk in the Chinese store with them eyebrows.
Hold on, wait a minute. Who did that to you?
Also, Shula King Capone and hosted by Freeport's very own Romano Barber Russell from the hit play Crazy Love. Tickets available at Gizmos and Gadget. To reserve your platinum tables, call 807-5426. Show starts 8 p.m. this Friday.
Grand Bahama John West Shoe Store is still your #1 family shoe store for work, school, formal occasions, and play. We're stocked to the roof with all your favorite brands like Timberland, Reebok, Levi's, Vikings, from infants to men. Ladies, we've got your flats opened and closed, wedges and stilettos, and everything else in between. So, when your feet is calling for a new pair of shoes, John West Shoe Store. John West Shoe Store. We're going to take you there in style.
Topping sports tonight, boxing. Sherman Tango Williams still reminiscing on the May 26th boxing showdown at a Social Affair Convention Center. And Tank says more boxing action is on the way. Kimberly Mullings reports.
We hit the objective, and that was to bring professional boxing back to Grand Bahama. Drum in Grand Bahama. It's the first time in 40 years.
Bahamian professional boxer Sherman Tank Williams has been boxing for over 2 decades now. He says for the first dress rehearsal, Bahamian Sons Promotions did well despite competing with Mother Nature.
The fight was sanctioned by the Bahamas Boxing Commission, and we end up deputizing a few judges and officials from Grand Bahama. The crowd could have been better, but for the people that were there, my hat goes off to them. It's all about national pride. The experience was really amazing. All the fighters from Nassau and from the USA and from Cuba and from Colombia, everybody enjoyed themselves. That was the first time for them in Freeport, and it won't be the last time.
Now that boxing has returned, Grand Bahama can expect a lot. Tank says his goal has always been to push boxing on the island, but helping to revitalize Grand Bahama has now become his passion. He says the fight in May has catapulted Bahamian Sons to the next level. We're
looking at coming back in October, and we want to use Freeport truly as a boxing destination. I have connections throughout Europe, and throughout Russia, throughout Germany, and a lot of people express their interest wanting to come and have fights here in the Bahamas. So Bahamian Sons gonna be that mediator and that platform between the Ministry of Sports and the Ministry of Tourism. And I think I can do this as a sports ambassador and a boxing ambassador to really bring not only sports to Grand Bahama, but to build a revenue.
Kimberly Mullings, ZNet Soul Sports.
And that's going to do it for sports tonight.
This hurricane season, you can have light when the power is off with Solar Up Bahamas. Find out more about commercial and residential solar systems and lighting. Phone 727-4237.
This month alone, I reduced my power bill by over $300 by purchasing a solar system from Northern Bahamas Utility Company. My power bill is now $16. Can you believe it?
There's another reason why owning a solar system from Northern Bahamas Utilities is right for you. Stop by today at number 8 Oak Street or call us at 225-0766 extension 106 and ask about our in-house financing or lease-to-own option. See you today.
part of the Down Home experience at Southfest on Saturday, July 7th from 3 p.m. until at St. Vincent de Paul School Grounds in Hunters.
And that's going to do it for us here in the North. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepard. The Bahamas Tonight continues.
In the National Report, fulfilling his duty. The Prime Minister addressing the terminations of senior positions formerly held by 3 members of Parliament. Senate communication. Debate on the 2018-2019 budget began in the upper chamber today. Final phase. Trade Winds 2018 winding down with more training. The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report starts right now.
This portion of the news is brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The Prime Minister maintains that he has to fulfill his constitutional duty as the country's leader. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Altaviz Munnings. Welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. Thanks so much for joining us. One day after government terminated the senior government-appointed positions of members of Parliament Travis Robinson, Vaughn Miller, and Frederick McAlpine, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Hubert Minnis told reporters in Grand Bahama today that in a democratic society, he has to adhere to his obligations as Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke on the matter with our Atalia Hall of our Northern Service in Freeport this morning.
The 3 F&M MPs were given letters of termination from their government jobs. As a result, MP for Pine Ridge Frederick McAlpine is no longer the chairman of the Hotel Corporation. MP for Baines and Grantstown Travis Robinson Post as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation was revoked, and member of Parliament for Golden Isles Vaughn Miller's position as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Social Development was withdrawn. The nation's leader was asked about the firings, and he says that as Prime Minister, he has a responsibility to follow cabinet rules and regulations.
I cannot allow my personal views to get into democracy. We have a parliamentary procedure, and I must adhere, respect, and ensure that the parliamentary procedure lives on and is honored and respected thoroughly. We are a democratic society. We practice the Westminster system, parliamentary procedure, and I have certain obligations, and I will ensure that I adhere to my obligations. I'm committed to that, and I must ensure that democracy must always be in the forefront, and democracy must always prevail. I have a responsibility, and I will not shun away from my responsibility.
The budget was passed in the House of Assembly on Monday night and is currently before the Senate for debate. Once approved, the budget is expected to solidify the country's fiscal agenda for the next year. Prime Minister Minnis says this budget has everything to do with the future growth and development of the Bahamas.
I don't concentrate on just what is today. Sometimes one has to make difficult decisions today so that you can have a better tomorrow. And I focus more on tomorrow, but at the same time ensuring that one has a great today.
But many Grand Bahamians continue to question the government's decision to levy an increase in value-added tax when the local economy continues to struggle.
The Bahamas were poised for 2.5% growth. There are many projects that are coming on stream very soon at Grand Bahama, and we made some decisions that we think would be better for the Bahamas. You see what is happening in Barbados, and I have said, and I would repeat again, I do not want to leave a Bahamas behind where a future Prime Minister on his first day in office must call some international financial agency for rescue. That is not fair to any future government, and it's my job to ensure that I place the Bahamas in the best possible footing for a future generation.
It's Halia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senator the Honorable Carl Bethel, charged in this morning's session of the upper chamber that members of Parliament speak for constituents on the floor of Parliament. But under the Westminster system, they are required to vote with the governing party they were elected under once the whip is on. Senator Bethel says every member of parliament has the inalienable right to free speech, noting that he too has had to speak for his constituents against government, but fell in line when it came to voting with government. Senator Bethel says the Westminster system under which the Bahamas operates is efficient, despite some suggesting changing the system.
You have too much democracy in a congressional system where entrenched vested interests can frustrate the will of the people by parliamentary inertia. And then you have a dictatorship of the people or whatever it is that makes up a communist system where it's one-party rule. Nobody wants that in their right minds. And so we're left with this hybrid system called the Westminster system, which, you know, I think I have to accept Sir Winston Churchill's definition of Westminster democracy. It's a lousy system, but it's the best yet devised. Better than any of the rest.
Residents in the Bain and Grandstown constituency thanked their Member of Parliament, Travis Robinson, for taking a firm stand on their behalf on the proposed increase in value-added tax during a walkabout in the Over the Hill community Tuesday evening. The 23-year-old parliamentary representative was one of 4 Free National Movement members of Parliament who voted no on the value-added tax amendment bill, which was passed late Monday night in the House of Assembly. Robinson was relieved of his duties as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation yesterday. Robinson spoke with our news team on the matter during the walkabout.
I'm just doing a walkabout and just to hear what the people have to say after I would have voted on their behalf. Well, there are many questions from persons who would have questions. Media houses have reached out to me. But like I say, any questions I would answer at that time after I give an official response.
Robinson confirmed that he sent a letter of request to Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Honorable Halson Moultrie, Tuesday evening, and he's hoping to receive a favorable response.
I sent a communication to the Speaker of the House, and I anticipate that when the House next meet, I will give an official response on everything that you've heard or seen so far.
Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar, responding to the termination of Parliamentary Secretaries Vaughn Miller and Travis Robinson. Minister de Aguilar says the Parliamentary Code left no other choice but for them to either resign or be terminated. The Tourism Minister acknowledged that it's unfortunate that Travis Robinson was terminated, as he believes the Ministry of Tourism has lost a great worker.
Travis and I worked very well together. We developed what I think is a great bond. It was good as Minister of Tourism to have someone else from the political directorate to confer with, to discuss, and he was an enormous asset to me. But he was resolute in his decision and he stood by his convictions, and you may not agree with the position, but I guess you got to respect him for that. It's just sad that he took the position that he did, and sad in the sense that we can no longer work together. So I wish him well, and I'm sure he'll always remain a part of the F&M family.
Today, residents here in New Providence also weighing in on the government's decision to terminate former parliamentary secretaries Travis Robinson and Vaughn Miller, as well as Frederick McAlpine as chairman of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas. While not in agreement with the proposed increase to value-added tax, resident Clarence Smith believes that the Prime Minister made the right move. In fact, he likened it to operating a family home.
It's just like you run your own house. If your kids ain't will rebel with you, then you have to do what you have to do. You have to get them out, right? So if they speak against him, then he have no other choice but to keep his place in order. But he have rights and ministers have rights. But further on, ministers did said if anybody get out of line, he'll have to terminate them.
Well, despite that comment, the majority of the residents we spoke to supported the vote by the members of Parliament and expressed disappointment in the decision to terminate their government positions.
That means they have no voice. If I do wrong, they must side with my wrong. The town is in uproar and we are not prepared to get another hike.
Mark Alpine, Vaughn Miller, and all who voted against the 12% is right. And thank God for them standing up for God and for the black, poor Bahamian people.
That's a diss for Travis because he tried to help the people and things and bad. I don't know how we can work this out.
I don't think he understands that when a member of parliament goes into parliament, he's there because of the constituency to which he have offered his services to. I think he's dead wrong.
Still ahead, another industry weighing in on the impact of value-added tax increase. And the Royal Bahamas Police Force issuing some much-needed equipment. We're just getting started here on the National Report. We've got more news on the next side of the break.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell, fueling journeys that matter. Summer promotion.
Are your monthly bills coming in on top of your holiday bills? It's time for a change. Bundle your bills into one low-rate loan with Commonwealth Bank. Move your high-rate loans and credit card balances from other banks to a low-rate consolidation loan at Commonwealth Bank. Less stress, less to pay, each and every month. Plus, the chance to win $5,000. So make a change. Get a consolidation loan at Commonwealth Bank and pay less.
Here comes the lucky guy who won a date with Fanshawn to his prom.
KFC got the big deal meal, freshly handmade every day for real.
Made fresh every day?
What I said, what you take? KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a real big deal. KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a
now that's a big deal.
Hey, it's a real big deal. Hey, it's a real big deal. Let's make this moment last forever. Let's start a family together. With a house, a car, and kids. Oh, I love the way we live. I got it covered. BAF has got me covered. So live your life. BAF for life. So live your life. BAF for life. So live your life. BAF for life. BAF has got you covered.
We start with a yes, but when life takes unexpected turns, you can still say yes to more. The Scotiabank Aero Platinum MasterCard credit card gives you points with every purchase that you can use to travel anywhere. Fly on any airline, anywhere, at any time, with no blackout dates. Plus, with just 20,000 Scotia points, you can say yes to destinations. With Scotiabank Aero Platinum MasterCard credit card, it's easier to say yes to everything. Apply today.
Take a dash of location, 2 scoops of service, 3 helpings of savings, mix well and serve. That's super value in quality supermarkets. Hunt's barbecue sauces, 18-ounce size, 2 for $3. Center cut pork chops, $2.69 per pound. Vitamalt tonic, case price, $23.76. 12-ounce size, 99 cents. Shoppers Value foam plates, 30 count, $1.39. Limes, 5 for $1. Carolina Pride ham, 10-ounce size, $2.99. Every week is special at Super Value and Quality Supermarkets.
This portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
We begin this segment with news from Parliament. Senators began debate on the 2018-2019 budget this morning with Leader of Senate Government Business, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senator the Honourable Carl Bethel, stressing that it's incumbent on government to act now to address financial challenges before the Bahamas suffers the fate of countries like Jamaica that saw its dollar devalued again last week. Despite widespread public criticism on the budget that will see an increase in value-added tax, Senator Bethel says government must make tough decisions in the interest of the country.
We're going to do as a people what is necessary to save our country. It is a bitter pill, but we are merely having to swallow the consequences of 60 years of deficit financing. 60 years of politely rolling over debt, meaning perpetuating debt by borrowing more.
Free National Movement Senator, the Honorable Dwight Sawyer, seconded the bill and described it as a good and sound bill that will benefit Bahamians.
I'd like to close by saying that I second this. I second the bill on the budget for 2018-2019, and I support it. And let there be no doubt about it. With God's willing, unless there's anything barring any of unforeseen circumstances with me, I will be voting yes.
Meanwhile, members of the auto industry concerned about the impact of an increase in 12% of value-added tax on the sector. Bahamas Motor Dealers Association President and Auto Mall Executive Fred Albury says the new tax structure will create inequity in the auto industry and possible job losses in the future.
Dealers who have 1.5-liter engines and less will have to take a tremendous loss on taxes that was already paid at 65%. So we're hoping that this can be some sort of offset with the government regarding that. We've been attempting to get to them about it. 1.5-liter breakpoint also is going to impact the new car industry in that it's going to be in favor of a few dealers and at the detriment of a few others.
Sales Managing Director at Friendly Motors Limited, Andrew Barr, believes government should have also given consideration to reducing the duty on motorcycles and motor scooters.
In islands like Bermuda, the main source of transportation is scooters and motorcycles. So, you know, right now you pay more duty on a motorcycle or on a scooter than you do on a car. So they did reduce this duty on electric scooters, but I'm not sure that many people drive them. But in the area of motorcycles and scooters, they could have reduced the duty on that and encouraged that, which would have allowed more fuel-efficient means of transportation to a lot of people.
Close to 100 residents from 4 constituencies in southwestern New Providence assembled at the Sybil Strawn Primary School on Carmichael Road last night to get their questions answered on the 2018-2019 budget and the implementation of 12% value-added tax. This latest town meeting to discuss the budget comprised constituents of Tall Pines, Golden Isles, Bamboo Town, and South Beach constituencies. Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Peter Turnquest, revealed that some ministries' budgets had to be slashed as a result of a recently discovered outstanding bill of $360 million.
In the budget that we have, 23 of them have been cut below last year's expenditure. Several of them have been increased by 1.5%. And that is a reflection of the priorities that we have as the government for the upcoming year. Recognize that our failure to act could result in another downgrade, which we cannot afford. It could result in increased borrowing costs in terms of interest rates. Eventually, it could lead to runs on our foreign reserves.
Minister Turnquest says the government has pushed the expenditure as low as it could to avoid stress on these services these ministries provide. He said government will not be firing employees, but will use this alternative.
And so we've made the decision that we're not going to be firing anybody wholesale. That will cause pandemonium. And so we are going to allow some natural attrition. We're going to allow those persons who may want to do something else to do that. Some in critical areas will be replaced. Others we will reassign people or will not fill, depending on the persons involved or the positions involved.
And constituents in the Killarney constituency assembled at the New Providence Community Center last night also to discuss the 2018-2019 budget. Financial Secretary Marlon Johnson explained the important details of the budget, including tax increases, concessions, and expenditures. Johnson announced the government's plans to publish value-added tax guidelines by the end of this week. He says the guidelines are expected to help Bahamians transition to the 12% value-added tax increase.
But the published guidelines will let persons understand what to do in the transition.
what to expect around price tags. Do I have to pay VAT on July 1? What about the breadbasket items? So it is intended to give both the merchants as well as the general public some written guidelines and written information around that. We will publish on the Department of Inland Revenue's website. We will be publishing notices in the newspaper. We will share it through the Ministry of Finance's page on Facebook. And just again, make sure people understand what's happening, because we do get all sorts of questions. People want to know, well, what if the merchant bought the good at 7.5%? Come July 1, do they charge 12% VAT? And so it's answering those kinds of questions for people.
After 4 sitting members of Parliament voted no on the implementation of value-added tax that increased during the 2018-2019 budget communication, ZNS News fielded the question to Press Secretary Anthony Newbold on whether or not a pending cabinet shuffle could be looming after this latest turn of events.
One wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with the other. Certainly no cabinet ministers were involved, but one won't necessarily have anything to do with the other. If the Prime Minister decides he wishes to shuffle, that would be a totally independent decision.
The press secretary also informed reporters yesterday that $5 million has been allocated in the upcoming budget for the Over the Hill Community Partnership Initiative, and repairs have already begun.
Work has begun. Actually, it began last weekend to repair the 77 standpipes in the Over the Hill community. 3 contractors from the area have been engaged to do that work, bringing some economic benefit over the hill. Early next week, site works scheduled to begin at the McPherson Park on Hay Street, Father Marshall Cooper Park and Mason's Addition. Just the beginning of a massive effort to modernize all 15 of the parks in the Over the Hill community.
The Royal Bahamas Police Force issuing some 10 brand new motorcycles to officers of its traffic division today. The motorcycles are expected to help traffic police officers continue to step up efforts to fight crime, as well as crack down on traffic violators across the country. Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson says the additional motorcycles will help bring calm to streets nationwide.
The Providence, they will have a substantial amount, I think in excess of 10 brand new motorcycles. Grand Bahama will have in excess of about 6. We have Abaco. Recently there have been lots of serious traffic accidents on Abaco. I'm also issuing motorcycles to Exuma. I'm issuing motorcycles to Cat Island, Long Island, and Eleuthera.
The police commissioner had this warning for traffic violators, particularly those here in the capital.
Those persons who like to be speeding on those little short highway, I'm not going to tell you where, because so you'll be surprised. The element of surprise will be everywhere. Anytime you go over the speed limit, and if you look at the amount of cycles that I have, that I'm issuing today and what we have, it tells you that the elements of surprise will no doubt be there. And every time you go over the speed limit, I expect to see the increase in traffic violators being ticketed. And there'll be no exception. You go to court and you pay.
Flamingo Air Charter launched its new air ambulance service. The medical emergency aircraft is equipped to respond to emergencies throughout the Bahamas. The Bahamian-owned and operated company is ready to fly persons to the capital who are in need of urgent medical treatment. Flamingo Air's CEO, Captain Raymond Meadows, says the air ambulance cost approximately $1 million and it can fly to family islands with proper runways and lighting.
This airplane could get into 3,000 feet runways. Anything shorter than that, we won't be able to get into. But most of the Bahama Islands, the 17 airports that's functioning, the runways are more than 3,000 feet. So we're delighted to go in. We have flight crews ready, that's not drinking, that's ready and are resting in the event if something comes up at night. And most of the time our calls come in between 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So we have crews available to do those flights.
Attending the ribbon-cutting ceremony was Minister of Tourism, Aviation and Bahamas Air, the Honorable Dionisio D. Aguilar, who says the new air ambulance is a plus for the tourism industry and it gives the island destinations another feature to offer that benefits Bahamians and visitors.
If you go to those islands, and even Bahamians who travel for regattas and homecomings, to know that when you go to these islands and God forbid something happens, there's a fast, efficient, well-established company that you can call upon to zip down there, pick you up and bring you back to Nassau. So I'm very delighted that, this is part of our nation building. It's part of our natural progression to first world status. We now have the ability to fly down, pick you up, bring you to Nassau in something that's equipped to ensure that you remain stabilized until you can get into an emergency room.
This portion of the news was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
This is your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm C.S. Scatterly. Bahamian financial regulators are exploring the creation of appropriate regulatory regimes for the emerging blockchain technology and cryptocurrency sectors. The efforts come as the Bahamas hosts industry leaders, financiers, block signers, and miners at the inaugural 3-day blockchain and cryptocurrency conference, which began today in Freeport. The Bahamian business community has significant interest in blockchain technology and its various applications. Now, the government is working closely with regulators and the private sector partners to position the Bahamas, especially Grand Bahama, as a leader in this sector. In other business news, Garfield Gary Sinclair has been appointed as CEO of the Bahamas Telecommunications Company. That appointment takes effect August 1st. Company executives believe Gary is uniquely qualified to lead BTC's business, having served as president of Cable and Wireless Caribbean Business. They also thank Dexter Cartwright, who held the position as BTC's interim CEO for a little over a year. He will now be C&W's vice president for its B2B business. And in international news, Disney just raised the stakes in the fight for 21st Century Fox. The company sweetened its offer Wednesday to $71.3 billion for Fox's movie studio, along with Fox's regional sports networks and cable channels like FX and National Geographic. That's more than $65 billion Comcast offered a week ago. Disney had initially bid $52.4 billion for Fox in December. 21st Century Fox is the next big prize as the media industry consolidates to survive against competitors such as Netflix and Facebook. This has been your Royal Fidelity Business News. I'm C.S. Scatterly.
Well, we're the Nutty Bavarian Bahamas. We specialize in glazed nuts, being cashews, almonds, pecans, and peanuts. Well, we're offering a 3-tier savings deal. It's 5% for the silver, 15% for the gold, and 25% for platinum members. You would call us at the number 698-2126, let us know what tier you're on, and then we'll work from there. So the discount will be applied to whatever you purchase from us. Normally the delivery time is within a day. You call your order in and then it's delivered the next day. But we wanted to align ourselves with a company that is as innovative as Alive. You know, they're a young upstart company and we just felt that we would want to be on board with a company that's doing big things in the Bahamas.
Know how you can save more money, save more time, earn more interest, and have more for the future? The solution is an account from Fidelity Bank. With our ASU Savings, fixed deposits, and preferred client program, you can get free financial advice from our team of experts, competitive interest rates, and free online banking for simple and safe banking anytime, anywhere. Open a fixed deposit or savings account with Fidelity by visiting a branch today. Get into the rhythm of saving with Fidelity. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Life is filled with choices. Every choice we make has a consequence. Whether big or small, financial choices have more lasting consequences than most. When we make sound financial choices, we improve our relationship with money and set ourselves up for financial success. Visit GetMoneySmartBahamas.com and learn how to get money smart today.
Food. It is as essential as air is to breathe and water is to drink. Food is life. But where does our food come from? The Bahamas has more than 2,000 farmers, but it's hardly enough to keep up with our growing population. Or is it? We traveled the nation to find out the answers to the questions everyone is asking. Can we feed ourselves?
If you own a portfolio of securities within a brokerage account, like stocks, bonds, or mutual funds, you can access a hassle-free loan, known as a margin loan, based on the value of that portfolio. Your investment portfolio is essentially used as collateral for a cash loan. And the benefits are numerous. Simple and straightforward application, quick turnaround, a more competitive interest rate, no requirement for monthly payments. Contact us for more information on margin loans.
Mario thought he could have his cake and eat it too. He almost found out the hard way that if you don't insure your home for the full replacement value, when it comes time to make a claim, you won't get the full payout. It's called the condition of average. If your $200,000 home is destroyed by a hurricane, but you only insured it for $100,000, half the value, you'll only get half of that $100,000 payout. Actually, less than that, because there's also a deductible which will be deducted from your payout. Check your home insurance policy for the condition of average clause and ask your insurance agent or broker how condition of average would affect you. This message was brought to you by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, protecting the interests of policyholders.
The impact of bullying, conflict resolution issues, and the loss of a parent turned 17-year-old Raven Culmer out of control, leaving her family with the only option to enroll her into the Ministry of National Security shock treatment program for girls. And it was that intervention that gave Culmer the push she needed to make that positive turnaround. LaDawn Davis has her story.
To graduate high school with my diploma, I feel so relieved.
Failure is definitely not an option for 17-year-old Alpha Preparatory Academy graduate Raven Culmer. You see, Culmer lost her father suddenly at 8 years old, and her mother, Petra Culmer, had to struggle to make ends meet for her and her young sibling. Raven turned to a life of violence and was later enrolled in the shock treatment program for at-risk young girls, a program Raven says changed her life in a positive way.
In grade 9, I was sent to shock treatment with Mr. Reed, because I was fighting a lot after being bullied about my eyes and where I live.
Even though many thought Raven would have been a statistic, she later thanked her mother, Carlos Reed, and her aunt for playing a pivotal role in her academic success.
My one auntie, who paid my entire school fee when I was almost about not to graduate.
Co-executive producer of Shock Treatment and social activist Carlos Reed says despite her past, he is proud of Raven's accomplishments so far, and he expects nothing but great things from her in the future.
I'm elated, I'm so proud of her seeing where she's come from, to be able to graduate and then next this summer going on to college. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that a lot of people have graduated that have gone through shock treatment. Shock treatment has worked for a lot of people.
Raven's mother, Petra Culmer, says Raven is one of just a handful of family members to graduate from high school. She says what motivated Raven even further was the encouragement she received from the wife of the father of the modern Bahamas, Governor General, Her Excellency Dame Margaret Penling.
What really turned around is when she met the Governor General, Miss Margaret Penling. And she was like, she loved her eyes. She came and she said, Mommy, she loved my eyes. So I was like, how you mean? She said, she told her, and she'll never forget this, that her husband had the same type of eye, and he run and ruled the whole Nassau of the Bahamas.
And Raven gave this advice to her peers.
You may be from Beantown, any other poor community. It's not where you start, it's where you're going to end.
Meanwhile, Raven plans to attend the University of the Bahamas in September to pursue a career in mathematics. LaDawn Davis, ZNS Network News.
Great job, Raven. We're all proud of you. Family Island weather and sports is up next. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report.
Joy has something new in store for you. For even longer lasting suds, a more powerful clean, and a delightful new scent, try Joy Orange. Try it now, and you could win a trip for two to Vegas, a trip for two to Orlando, or $1,000 cash. Just buy two 30-ounce bottles of Joy Orange and take your receipt to purchase on Robinson Road. Try Joy Orange and enter to win today. Promotion ends June 22nd.
And now, up-to-the-minute financial insights and advice from RBC Finco with the RBC Mortgage Minute.
Hi, I'm Toriano Lloyd, and I'm an RBC Finco mortgage specialist. Owning a home of your own or even a second home can be a dream come true. It's a big financial commitment and one of the best investments you will ever make. It will provide you and your family with comfort, enjoyment, and financial security for many years to come. Down the road, you can use the equity in your home to secure financing to help you realize other goals, to renovate, invest, or finance your children's education. We're the mortgage specialists, and we're ready to help you every step of the way. At RBC Finco, it's all about you.
That was the RBC Mortgage Minute. To learn more, please call or visit your nearest RBC Finco branch. It's all about you.
The performance speaks for itself. Pennzoil Synthetics, made from natural gas. Make the switch.
Every island and every key. Keep in touch with everybody. It's BTC every day.
This summer, BTC is partnering with the Bahamas National Trust for an event that's called Summerfication. This family fun day will include lots of great deals from BTC and also a great learning experience from the Bahamas National Trust. All right, so LaToya, let's talk about Summerfication.
Well, Summerfication is just a spin-off of Jollification. Everybody knows what Jollification is. What we want to do at Summerfication is bring a suite of our products and services to the public, have the public experience what it is to have a limitless summer with BTC. Also bringing to them the experience of what we would say what Gombe used to be back in the day. So you are to expect, the all authentic Bahamian food out there, as well as Bahamian crafts. We also partnered with 700 on this initiative, so they'll be out there. This is a family event, so you can actually come in and you can bring your kids at the event because we have a whole kiddie corner. The event will be held on June 23rd between the hours of 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Bahamas National Trust on Village Road. We want to play our part. BTC wants to play its role in conserving the Bahamas National Park. We also have persons who are able to sign up on that day, to be a member of the BNT, but you can also sign up with us too at BTC for any one of our products and services.
So it's Summerfication this June 23rd. We look forward to seeing you at the Bahamas National Trust. I'm Corval Piper, and we'll see you next BTC Connection.
Keep in touch with everybody. It's BTC every day. Every day, every day, every day. Every day is a new day.
It's now time to check on the weather in your part of the Bahamas, and Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean joins us live in studio with the latest temperatures. Good evening, Basil.
Good evening, Altoise. Right now, we're going to pause to take a look at temperatures around the Family Islands, and they are brought to you by Family Guardian Insurance Company. We're protecting you. It is 86 degrees in Freeport, Green Tool, Key and Abaco, also Marshall, Abaco at 86 degrees. In the Berry Islands, 82. Bimini, 83 degrees. Here in the capital, 82. Harbor Island, Eleuthera, 81. Roxanne, Eleuthera, 82. 82 also in Otterstown, Cat Island. Staniel Key, that's in the Exuma chain, 83. 83 also in Kemps Bay, St. Andrews, and Fresh Creek in Central Andros. 82 is also in San Salvador and Rum Key in Georgetown, Exuma, 82. And those 82s, 83s, pardon me, extends into Clarencetown, Long Island, Crooked Island, and Ragged Island. 82 degrees in Betsy Bay, Maguana, and Acklands, Matthew Town, Inagua at 85 degrees, and the Turks and Caicos Islands at 83 degrees. And your boating forecast tonight is brought to you by Builders Mall, home of FYP, the Tile King, and the Pink Setter. In the northwest and central islands, light and variable winds with flat seas 1 to 3 feet. Low tide takes place in a few minutes at 7:51 for the southeast Bahamas. You can expect a southeast flow at 10 to 15 and the wave heights 2 to 4 feet. Tomorrow, for the northwestern islands, winds will swing out of the southwest at 10 to 15 knots. The wave heights 2 to 4 feet. Low tide 8:22 in the morning, high tide at 2:41 in the afternoon. For the southeast Bahamas, light and variable winds with flat seas, and as we take you into the southeast Bahamas, the winds will become southwest to west, and this is on Friday, by the way, for the northwest Bahamas. Speeds around 10 to 15 knots, wave heights 2 to 4 feet. Low tide taking place at 9:17 in the morning with the high tide at 3:40 in the afternoon. And for the central Bahamas on Friday, light and variable winds, wave heights 1 to 3 feet. For the southeast Bahamas, the winds will be southeast at 10 to 15 knots, and the wave heights 2 to 4 feet. That's going to do it for your boating forecast. It is time now for your trial forecast, and your trial forecast is brought to you by Royal Star Assurance.
Stop the world! I want to get off! Stop the world and let me off. Tired of going round and round. I played the game of love and loss. You stop the world and let me off. Stop the world and let me off. I'm tired of going round and round.
That's going to do it for your trial forecast, brought to you by Royal Star Assurance. But stay tuned, your extended weather forecast is coming up in about 7 8 minutes.
Welcome to Tips for Wellness. I'm Dr. Indira Grimes. For some people, asthma is a minor nuisance. For others, it can be a major problem that interferes with daily activities and may lead to a life-threatening asthma attack. Asthma is a condition in which your airways narrow and swell and produce extra mucus. This can make breathing difficult and trigger coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath. Asthma symptoms range from minor to severe and vary from person to person. Asthma signs and symptoms include shortness of breath, chest tightness or pain, trouble sleeping caused by shortness of breath, coughing, or wheezing, a whistling or wheezing sound when exhaling. Wheezing is a common sign of asthma in children. Coughing or wheezing attacks that are worsened by a respiratory virus such as the cold or the flu. For some people, asthma symptoms flare up in certain situations, like when exercising or doing physical activity, in the workplace where chemicals, gases, or dust can be irritants, and asthma can be triggered by allergies. If you have been diagnosed with asthma or suspect you may have asthma, please see your doctor regularly, and your condition can be monitored and treated. Severe asthma attacks can be life-threatening. Work with your doctor ahead of time to determine what to do when your signs and symptoms worsen and when you need emergency treatment. This has been Tips for Wellness. I'm Dr. Indira Grimes. Live your best life by living well.
A flat screen or a fishing excursion, a gas grill or a GoPro. Win these great gifts for your dad.
Just buy Gillette razors and shave products and enter at Pritchard's for your chance to win.
Where can you find amazing selections of tiles from around the world? Exquisite medallions, pool mosaics, all colorful, bright and bold. They got granite countertop for the kitchen, elegant vanity zincs for the bathroom, tile care and Ruby too. Everything you need and more at the Tile King.
The Tile King, located 69 Wolf Road. For more information, call 326-TILE or 326-5464.
Introducing the Subway Simple 6 menu. 6 of our best 6-inch subs, now and made just for you meals for just $7.50 every day. Take your pick from our best subs, like the Italian BMT, tender turkey breast, sweet onion chicken teriyaki, and more. Pile them high with all of your favorite veggies, made just the way you say, with a 21-ounce drink and a bag of chips. The new Simple 6 menu is value made simple every day. Yeah, you so got it made. Subway, eat fresh.
Life happens, and when it does, FG Insurance Agents and Brokers is here. We help you protect the assets you've worked hard to attain. We offer home, auto, marine, commercial, and liability insurance. Don't hesitate to protect what matters with FG Insurance Agents and Brokers. Visit us and speak to your agent today, or call us at 396-1490 in Nassau or 688-1500 in Freeport.
Every day you wake up with the world in the palm of your hand. Making connections and creating memories and sharing them with the people you care about. Every day the world is at your fingertips, and you can experience every blockbuster movie in stunning HD and top 100 Billboard music hit with the touch of a button. Every day, your family and friends are important to you, and staying in touch no matter where you are in the Bahamas or the world is your #1 priority. And that's why, every day for over 100 years, BTC has been there to ensure that every Bahamian has the best connection to the world. We cover every island, rock and key, regardless of the cost. This is BTC Country.
Battery and Tire Specialists, now even bigger and better. We carry the largest selection of quality name brand tires, batteries, and lubricants for automotive, marine, and heavy-duty equipment with long-lasting batteries like Duracell, AC Delco, Premium Power, and Decker. We also retail and wholesale large selection of Valvoline motor oils. Come on in and visit Battery and Tire Specialists and the new 5-Bay Wheel Alignment Center at the junction of 7th Terrace and East Avenue, Centerville. Or call us at 242-328-0486. Battery and Tire Specialists. We keep you moving.
Today is a day for fun. Today is a day for family. So why should yesterday's worries affect my today? That's why I insure my family with J.S. Johnson, because their mission is to provide us with the best insurance coverage possible. With J.S. Johnson, I know my family comes first, so I take comfort in knowing that they always have us covered, providing us with a great today and an even better tomorrow.
J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
ZNS Total Sports is brought to you by 4th Terrace Diagnostic Center.
Welcome to sports, everybody. We're on the eve of the 2018 NBA Draft, and the 242 expected to take center stage tomorrow night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Our Charles Fisher already in the Big Apple ahead of what's surely to be an historic night for the Bahamas, and he joins us live with the very latest.
Yes, good evening, Johnny. It is not the best kept secret here in New York. Everybody projecting DeAndre Ayton to go #1 to the Phoenix Suns. Today, he was very jovial at the media availability press conference at the Hyatt Hotel, and he wants all Bahamians to be glued to their television sets come Thursday at 7 o'clock.
What would it mean to be the #1 overall pick?
It would be a big blessing. Just having that chip on your shoulder, carrying the nation behind you as a Bahamas, it's just a huge opportunity to show the world that, that we're coming through. The Bahamian people are coming. We're just not only the country of just track and field relative to basketball. But watching it on TV is another thing, but actually, being a part of it is just crazy. Having all you guys this is a big honor, and I'm really excited.
As the young Bahamian kids will be watching tomorrow, what is your message to them?
Anything's possible, and you always got to represent everywhere you go. Always represent your brand in the right way. You always want people to remember you as, something. You will always be something great, a great person off the court, accountable, responsible, things like that, humble, and never forget where you come from.
You mentioned us as a track and field country. Now, Olympics, we get up early in the morning.
Yes,
everybody's going to be watching on television tomorrow.
Yes, so, I'm just letting you know, 242 to the world, and, basketball in the Bahamas is evolving.
Well, Johnny, 7 o'clock tomorrow is the draft. Many more things for him to do prior to the draft. We're also hoping that Dwight Colby can hear his name called somewhere in the second round. But ZNS Total Sports here in New York covering the NBA draft. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Charles. Great job, and good luck to DeAndre tomorrow night. Well, back here at home, the Bahamas Aquatics Federation Swim Nationals closing out last night at the Betty Kelly Kenning National Aquatic Center. Mako Aquatics making a big splash, winning with 1,200 points. Alpha Aquatics a distant second with 502. The Grand Bahama Tritons third, 497. Barracudas fourth with 440. Freeport Aquatics finishing fifth with 294. Dolphins 6th with 285, St. Anne 7th with 76, Lyford Key rounding of the top 8 with 27. Individually, Devontae Carey able to hold his own, and he's looking forward to the rest of the year.
This is the best I've ever swum at a national competition. Hopefully I swim the same at CCGAN Games, and hopefully I go to the Youth Olympic Games in October. The 50 back for sure I know is 1 minute and 13 seconds, I think. My best time is 1 minute and 47. So close enough. Hopefully I get the B cut, and hopefully work for the A cut later on at later meets of the summer.
On to some tennis news now. A big win for Justin Roberts today at the $25,000 ITF Hardcourt Future in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Roberts and Jody Mangy from Antigua came from a set down to beat the fourth-seeded team of Steven Diaz and Ricardo Rodriguez Pace 2-6, 6-4, and 10-8 to move on to the semifinals. Diaz and Rodriguez Pace were both recently ranked in the top 200 in singles, and with the win, Roberts now has an ATP doubles ranking. Following a successful Junior Nationals last weekend, the B3As will stage its Senior Nationals this weekend at the original Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. In addition to the action on the track and in the field, some deserving athletes will be recognized as well.
The medalists from the 2016 Rio Games, the Central Bank has minted some coins in their honor for their achievements. Those athletes, Shawnee Yubo, Stephen Gardner, Chris Brown, and Stephen Newbo, the rest of the team, most of them will be present.
The Bahamas Baseball Association's Junior Nationals also set for this weekend in Grand Bahama. Moving forward, the BBA wants to make sure that all players who are in consideration for national team travel during the summer participate, and here's why.
We give the coaches who would be selected as national team coaches the opportunity to see all the players at one time, battling on the field, and you see all the skill sets that you need to see. And with that said, we have an 18U team that's traveling in November, trying to qualify for the 18U World Baseball Championships the following year in Panama in November. And we're going to take this opportunity at this Nationals to evaluate the players that are participating in the tournaments.
This will mark the second year that Martin Pork Burrows is the chief umpire for the tournament, and he believes his crew will deliver a home run.
I got a good mixture this year with some senior umpires and 1 or 2 youth umpires, especially like at the guard role. Coming up, it's going to be his first time. Derek Christie, it's going to be his first time. And these are young umpires coming in that have the love for the game. So we have umpires from 3 islands this year. Nassau, we have 7 umpires. Freeport, we're going to have about 6 to 7. And we have 1 from Eleuthera, Cyril Dane. Officiating, I think it's going to be very, very keen. We're going to be very strict with the rules, but we're going to let the kids play, So I think we're going to do a good job this year. with the umpiring team that we chose. About 3-4 years ago, the majority of us, the senior set, myself, Bishop, and the guys from Freeport, got a somewhat certified in Freeport when we did it 3-4 years ago. But other than that, the new set, they are level 1 certified.
We have more tonight from last weekend's Megawana Regatta in Pirates Well. For more on that, here's Amajal Knowles.
We heard from the sailors and the event organizers on their thoughts on this weekend's All-Megawana Regatta. Well, it's time to hear from the residents themselves. With a population of roughly 300, they describe how the event makes the already tight-knit community even closer.
We have a Betsy Bay homecoming also in April, and we do likewise where everybody come together. But this one is much bigger. You know, it's bigger. It's getting bigger. I like it. You know, and I would expect bigger things to happen in the future.
When they get together at once, at least everybody come together as a unity community. So it will be better, and it will, since they work together, everything will be fine.
Despite receiving positive feedback from festival goers, event organizer Jacob Higgins says that his committee still plans to make several improvements to make the event even better.
You see the four pole over there? That is for the lookout tower. With the office downstairs where we can pay off the sailors instead in the yard. You'll find a laboratory over this way. And where we standing, in the future you will see a waterfall. You know, with water. They are the things we have planned. And we also have planned to bring the E-class next year, along with the C-class, in order for the people of Megawana to learn how to sail. Because one day we may have to do it by ourselves.
Again, the regatta wrapped up this weekend with Revelation 3 and 19 taking home the top prize. Presenting us Total Sports, I'm Amajal Knowles.
And that will do it for sports. Stay tuned. The Bahamas Tonight comes back after the break.
ZNS Total Sports is brought to you by Fourth Terrace Diagnostic Center.
To feel fresh and dry all day long, use Always Dailies. Now when you buy any 2 packs of Dailies liners, you can enter to win a Samsung S6, Jumbo gift cards, or cash prizes. Buy Always Dailies and enter to win.
Good night, BTC family. It's Julian Believe, and we're back with another BTC Tech Tip.
Yeah, I got a call saying BTC is putting fiber in my neighborhood, but I don't even know what fiber is.
Fiber is the latest data transfer technology, providing high-speed internet connection at up to 1,000 megabits per second. With fiber to the home, customers can experience great bandwidth and reliability with their internet connection. And that bandwidth allows for services like smart home systems, Flow TV, and even home office internet.
How much will it cost to install?
Installing fiber has no cost to you if you're an existing BTC fixed line customer. However, if you are a brand new BTC customer, the installation cost is $150. And get this, having a fiber line connected to your home actually increases the value of your property.
Wow, now that makes it worth it.
And there you have another BTC Tech Tip. See you next time.
Whether you want to get going in a new car, to relax at home while you pay bills on your mobile banking app, to get the best rewards with your credit card, or to get a sure start on your little one's future. Whether you want a quick response on your loan, or just a range of services that keep your business running smoothly, you want banking that fits your life. CIBC First Caribbean. Banking that fits your life.
BTC is giving the gift of rollover data, plus free unlimited WhatsApp calls, texts, pictures, and videos. Choose from our 1-day plan for $349, 7-day plan for $999, or our 15-day plan for only $29.99. We've even thrown in unlimited BTC to BTC calls and texts. Dial *203# to activate your plan today. Share every moment with BTC. Terms and conditions apply.
Pantene has a collection for every hair type. And now when you buy any 2 Pantene products, you can enter at Pritchard's to win up to $1,000 cash. Try Pantene for your chance to win.
Time now for weather.
In our final look at weather, we have this surface trough right across the northwest Bahamas. As a matter of fact, just slightly to the south of New Providence, and that will perhaps work its way back towards the north during the course of the night, and that will trigger another round of showers and thunderstorms, which could be heavy at times. Around the tropics remain quiet, at least for the next 5 days, but we will continue to monitor the tropics during the early part of the season. Right about now, the area of development tends to be not too far from the Bahamas, also the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. But as we move into the middle part of the season, perhaps around August, September, that focus will shift to the middle Atlantic and the far eastern Atlantic as well. Tonight, we're going in for cloudy conditions with showers and thunderstorms developing late again, and as we said, some of those could be heavy at times. Low temperature getting down to 78 degrees, and tomorrow the cloudiness will continue with showers cranking up again in the afternoon and thunderstorms in that mix as well. High temperature tomorrow, 86 degrees. Extended weather forecast over the next 7 days. We're going to keep showers in the forecast right into the early part of Saturday in the afternoon. Once again, we're going to try to dry things out for you, and that will take us into Sunday and the early part of next week, where we will see drier conditions with an abundance of sunshine and keeping the mercury column just below that 90-degree mark for you. Nighttime temperatures not too comfortable, and with those light winds certainly not adding any aid at all.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Basil. Well, that is it for the Bahamas tonight. On behalf of the entire news and production teams, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great evening, everyone.
You're watching the ZNS Network, the People's Station.
A lot of Bahamians say they're not happy with some of the news coming out of the 2018-19 budget communication. But what are the real implications for the budget? We'll talk about that and more in this edition of The Read Factor.
So we could have carved the budget to say we only could run a $100 million deficit, and both minister and I would sleep a lot better, at least in the short term. But guess what? Again, another 2 or 3 years, bills ain't getting paid. So the reality is that these are the stark choices that you have. Or, as we discussed, we could send almost 6,000 to 7,000 people. Even if that was done, you create an economic, you take all those salaries out of the economy, you put all those people on social welfare, and you take all that consumption out, and you end up slowing down the economy to negate whatever budget savings you had. So what I'd like to impress upon the Bahamian people, as the minister said, is that these decisions aren't taken tritely. And they're taken very holistically, looking at all of the implications.
My very special guest, Michael Halkitis, is a former Minister of State for Finance, who was, of course, very much involved in previous budgets. And he is a financial analyst as well. And, of course, Gowan Bowe, who is now president of the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants. Welcome to the Read Factor.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. We just heard Marlon Johnson, who is the financial secretary, giving part of the rationale for the biggest thing, I guess, that Bahamians are concerned about, the introduction or the planned introduction of VAT up to 12%. What do you think about what he had to say? We start with you, Gowan.
I think when you step back, the big difficulty persons have is that there really has not been a true empirical analysis of what decisions or what options were considered and what decisions were made thereafter. Ultimately, when it was first introduced, we were complimented for a system that was simple, that kept the base broad and a low tax rate. And whilst there was always the gnashing of teeth, we were able to implement it with relative ease in the sense that persons digested it. When you now look at the new system, and I call it a new system because they're introducing, whether it be exemptions, zero rating, but ultimately they are having if you will, vatable items and items that will not have VAT. You are now introducing a complexity and equally increasing the rate. And so persons are looking and saying the items that VAT is going to be removed upon really is a small basket of the grand scheme of things upon which you consume. And so when you're looking at that, if that drives the price of everything else up, there's the concern that will that now have the negative impact on economic spend? And I believe when you're talking about a system change, more dialogue, greater education, and certainly the empirical analysis that says I am comfortable that I'm not going to push the economy into recessionary pressures was going to be critical to get people comfortable.
Michael Alkides.
Yeah, I think in addition to what Gowan has said, not only the critical need when you are contemplating or when you're implementing such a large increase to get as much as you can buy-in from all of the stakeholders, I think all of us, and in the papers this week, you have even some of the members of parliament on the government side saying that they were taken by surprise, both by the increase and the magnitude of the increase. So I hear the financial secretary, and he's saying, in effect, that we all have to make sacrifices because we have a fiscal situation that they want to correct and that they want to correct in fast time. But I think for those of us who watch the communication, you know, the Minister of Finance, you know, he gave a long communication, and then he began to say, to enunciate and enumerate the things that VAT would be removed from, and then out of nowhere, we get this 12% increase. So in addition to the lack of an appreciation, I believe, of the widespread impacts, it's not simply saying we're going to raise VAT from 7.5% to 12% and our revenue is going to go up and the economy is going to continue to grow. There's going to be fallout, and it's incumbent upon the authorities, when you're contemplating such a big move, to be able to satisfy the public that we did the study, we did the analysis, we did the modeling, and this is what we anticipate would happen. And even before that, to, you know, I know it's difficult, and I know the Minister of Finance, again, he's quoted as saying they wanted to keep it close to the chest because they didn't want to have, you know, certain behavior happen, panic buying, etc. But when you're contemplating such a big move, there is the need for consultation with the stakeholders, because as you see now with the backlash, you have the private sector saying, you know, the impact that it will have on them across all industries. You have the tourism industry lobbying for concessions, and so yes, you may want to hold it close to the chest, but when you're contemplating such a big move, the impacts are wide.
Now, we're talking about 12%, but in real terms, in real life, when I go into an establishment, what is that really going to mean for Bahamians?
Well, ultimately, this is the unknown. So even going back to what I originally said, that when the original VAT debate was taking place, and I think to bring back to people's memories, at the time, there was a certain arrogance that was seen at the government at the time in terms of it was a white paper and it was moving forward. To the credit, the maturity sat in when there was, if you will, the groundswell that said, give us the opportunity to do the proper analysis. And then what was even more mature was saying, well, let's sit down collectively and look at the various options that are being presented. And back then it was payroll tax, it was VAT with exemptions, VAT without exemptions. And then the equilibrium model provided information around what was going to be the cost of living increase. So all of this was information that was available when you rolled it out from an education standpoint. This time around, you have a 60% increase in the VAT rate. You have now exemptions or items that will not be charged VAT, zero rated or otherwise. But there's nothing that says, okay, well, what's going to be the cost of living increase that we've at least analyzed to say that it's going to be 4%, it's going to be 3.5%, it's going to be X. Ultimately, there's not been the dialogue to say, well, when we look at these particular items on which VAT has not been imposed, what is it going to have to businesses as it relates to their costs that they may have to absorb? What is it going to happen in terms of their price? What are the other factors? So we speak about oil, we speak about our normal consumer price index. All of these things come together, and it is a very naive position to believe that a percentage change increase in VAT is going to lead to a percentage change increase in revenues collected because it assumes that everyone behaves in the exact same way, that the economic growth continues and moves on in the same direction. And those are, in the economic world, we say ceteris paribus, all other things equal. Well, in the real world, ceteris paribus does not take place.
Well, you also mentioned the price of oil, which has already gone up, which the government has warned us of, right? Now, with this 12% tagged on, it's going to be crazy, isn't it?
And the only element I would say is that when we look at the exemptions and you look at the reason why it was a broad-based tax and why they are looking at implementing zero rating and exemptions, is because of what they call the marginalized, the persons who are less privileged. But in reality, study after study has shown, and the evidence has been there, it is more efficient and effective to redirect resources to the individuals that need. Because if Mike and I go into the food store and we can afford to pay the VAT on all of the items that are there, when you give a bread basket exemption or zero rating, we benefit from that as much as the individual who does not have that same discretionary spend. And so we should really be paying it. And you can't say, well, charge Mike and Gowan, but don't charge the man on the street. And then you have that confusion. So if you charge us all and redirect resources, that's the most efficient.
Our advice was, across the board, from our consultants, advisors, was that the most efficient VAT was a VAT at a low rate with minimal exemptions.
You had to actually make a clarification recently about the plans at which rate it was going to come in.
Exactly. So it was a low rate, 7.5%, with minimal exemptions. And as Gowan said, our decision was to those people who we felt would be adversely impacted the most, the low-income earners or the unemployed, you do a direct assistance to them. So before the introduction, we did an increase in the minimum wage, and we did an across-the-board increase in social assistance. What I fear is that now with the introduction of more exemptions, a zero rating, et cetera, in the absence of the ability to police the system, then you open the door for fraud and slippage and loopholes, which you would recall that when we first floated the idea of VAT, there was a lot of criticism. There was reference to some countries in the Caribbean who had introduced VAT and had to cancel it. And the reasons across the board why they had to cancel it and come back at it was because they couldn't manage the exemptions. And so that is my fear. Yes, it appears like it's a laudable thing. We're taking VAT off of bread basket items and other things. But study after study has proven that it's better to keep the administration of the VAT very simple. And if you want to assist those who would be negatively impacted, you give them a direct assistance.
Good. We're going to take a listen to what someone on the street said. We took to the streets the other day, and here's what one of them had to say about particularly the VAT issue.
I think the 12% is a bit high right now. I mean, based on the state of the economy, you still have a lot of persons out there who are hurting. I think it's important for us to know how we came up with this. I mean, all of a sudden, but I think it's important for the Bahamian public who will be enduring this burden to know exactly how we arrive at it and so soon. Me personally would think that it would have been over time be built to X amount, but the government is seeing fit, whereas it needs to do it at this time. I just think that the Bahamian people needs an explanation on why it is have to go to that during this period of time.
Tell us what you feel about the items that they've eliminated VAT on.
Well, the items, the bread basket items, I think that's very important, but I would have liked to see more healthier foods be reduced, and the ones that are not healthy for the public probably stay the same. I think.
When I was small, Uncle Jerome used to come by to help me with my homework. He'd take me out for ice cream and ask me to sit on his lap. It felt uncomfortable, but I couldn't tell Auntie Candace. She might get mad at me.
Let's talk. Call the Bahamas Crisis Center's free 24-hour hotline at 328-0922. Sometimes a conversation can change a life.
This is the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is Commonwealth Bank. And no matter how, no matter where, no matter what, Commonwealth Bank is here for you. Commonwealth Bank. Everything we do it for you.
Minister De Aguilar, now the Bahamas residents can fly or cruise free to the Family Islands. What are your summer vacation plans?
I'm going to go to the Family Islands of the Bahamas to bring tourism back to our family of islands.
And there's no better time than now with the 2 Fly or Cruise Free promotion, where all residents of the Bahamas can fly or cruise free to the Family Islands from Nassau. Let's go. Refresh, reconnect, and unwind in the Family Islands. For details, go to bahamasresidents.com today.
Every day at KFC, our cooks begin with the freshest pieces of chicken, hand breading and seasoning before cooking to golden perfection, making chicken that's hot, fresh, and ready for you to grab and head to your favorite spot for a meal with friends and family. The secret to preparing the world's juiciest, tastiest chicken, bundled with a variety of delicious sides, is real cooks who love what they do. Taste the KFC difference. Fresh prepared, in-store daily. KFC Nassau, it's finger-licking good.
Outback has been at this location here for going on 5 years, but we've been in the Bahamas for a representation of something around 10 years. Our operating hours are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Sunday to Thursdays, and on Fridays and Saturdays we go until 12 midnight. For the initial rollout of the awards program, we're going to be offering the silver members $5 off. For the gold members, we're going to offer 50% off on a blooming onion. And for the platinum, we're going to give them 7.5% off their entire bill. We wanted to partner with Alive, in a new and innovative way to be able to reach more customers within our customer base and to also give our customers an extra incentive to come into Outback.
I think they're trying to kill out all the poor people. They're only looking out for the rich.
Anything else? That's it?
That's it, because that's the whole thing of the matter. They say you get free tax coming in on a plane and a helicopter. What poor person could buy a plane or a helicopter? You get 25% on new cars. I can hardly buy all cars, but a new car.
What do you think about the other items that they took that off for, like the food items?
They take it off the food item and put them on the next one. That double what they take off the one and put on the next one.
Thank you. Well, we heard from two babies, one before the break and one after the break. One talking about the burden, and a lot of people that we interviewed felt that the poor man was being neglected in this. But when we talk about introducing this, do you think it had to be introduced so quickly and at such a high level? We spoke a little bit about the level, but so quickly.
Well, I think what it boils down to is having an understanding of your debt management and your fiscal affairs. When we look at budgets, unfortunately, going back now, I would say several years and even decades, it's sort of been a one-year picture, as opposed to saying, well, if we look at our state of economy and what we want to achieve over a longer period of time, what are the steps we need to take? So think about a business or your household. You have long-term objectives and you prioritize spending on an annual basis based on what you see you wanting to achieve over a period of time. Unfortunately, we get into this very short-term view. And if we start thinking about our debt, and when we started looking at VAT being implemented, we need to go back to the root. It was really saying that when we looked at the effective rate of taxation based on the economic activity of the country, we were around 17%. Most developed countries in the area of 25% and upwards. And so it was a look at how do I gradually increase that rate so that I am able to do the things that I need to do, but more importantly, to control the deficit and control the debt management. What we have not had is really a clear articulation over the debt management strategy. So we've heard that we're going to do this over a 3-year period.
Right.
Why the pick of a 3-year period? Because even if you look at international observers, when persons look, what's most important is that you have a clear plan, that you have clear milestones that you're looking to achieve, and you look back and do a proper analysis. Through my years of watching the budget debate, my greatest criticism is that we never look back and say, well, let's debrief on what's taken place. So what initiatives were not successful? What initiatives were successful that we need to expand? Where do we spend money that we should be looking at reprioritizing? And where do we not spend money? And then start to talk about, well, the assets that we have that we may not be using in a productive manner, because we have a number of government buildings, but all occupied by government. Some can be rented, as an example. So I think when we stop and we say that, you know, this is not a budget that helps the poor person, overall we have to look at the society as a whole. But we should not be looking in 1-year chunks. We should be looking at ourselves and saying that's why the National Development Plan was so important, that it identifies what it is we want to be. That allows us to look at revenue sources, new and old, and how we reinvent ourselves. It looks at those areas that we need to prioritize spending. And I would say when we look at this budget, the unfortunate one, I call it Kong salad, because it's all a mixed bag. Everything has been thrown in and then jumbled. And there's no clear understanding of what the priorities are and what the long-term vision is in terms of what's there.
It would appear that the real priority is to get a balanced budget, to actually manage very seriously public debt. That's what it is. That's what they've said, I would think. And that's why they're calling it a landmark budget. Eh?
On the agenda during this budget debate is the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Right.
In the Fiscal Responsibility Act, it's calling for a deficit of 0.5% of GDP by 2020-2021, which is 3 years, 2 years, two years from now. It also is calling for the reduction of the debt to GDP ratio from, I think it's around now 57% down to 50%. They have not put a timeline in the legislation. But so what the government is trying to do is achieve almost a balanced budget in the budget year 2020, 2021. So it speaks, your question was about why so quickly I think the government wants to achieve that. In my view, in my opinion, if I had to do it, I would do it over a more gradual period to give people time to adjust. 58% debt to GDP is not in the danger zone. The IMF tells you when you get to over 60%, you're in the danger zone. You're at 58%. You can get to 50% within 3, 4, 5 years with a much more gradual adjustment. So I think for speed, I think, unfortunately, in my view, the government has married itself to this to the timetable in the fiscal responsibility legislation, and so they want to get there quickly. As Zagawan says, if you take a longer-term view of what you're doing, then you can do a more gradual adjustment, give people time to adjust. The pain is not as great.
Now VAT, when you were Minister of State for Finance, VAT, a portion of that was used to deal with the deficit as well, right?
Well, what happened is this, and this was a very, very interesting and sometimes entertaining and sometimes confusing debate, was that the way VAT works, or the way any form of taxation works, is by if it increases the amount of revenue that you collect, you're able to pay for what the government needs to do without resorting to so much borrowing, and so eventually the deficit is reduced, and eventually you don't have to borrow as much, and so eventually your debt starts to come down. Where the confusion arose amongst members of the public is that many felt that you can take VAT revenue and apply it directly to the debt. The public finances doesn't work like that. It goes into the consolidated fund, raises your level of revenue, decreases the deficit. A big part of this budget communication and last year was that the previous administration, of which I was a part, has been reckless, and that because of that, the government has to take these drastic measures. But if you were to look at this budget presentation, in the estimates of revenue and expenditure, it will show that In 2013-2014, the deficit was 4.5%. In 2014-2015, it dropped to 3.3%, and in 2015-2016, it dropped to 2.5%. Now, in 2016-2017, we had the devastation of Hurricane Matthew, and the deficit went up to 5.8%. Unfortunately, I think the government has based this plan on that anomalous year where you had a hurricane that devastated the economy, devastated the revenue, caused the government to have to spend money on cleanup and reconstruction. The government had to give exemptions for people to rebuild. And so you had basically a trend of the deficit going down. You had 1 year with hurricane devastation and went back up. Now, we can get back to that positive trend. We don't need to do it in 2 years with so much pain for the public.
Rick Gallenberg, I'm going to ask you this. They're projecting an above average hurricane season this year. We only need 1 or 2 islands to get hit, one island really to get hit in a big way. What would that mean with this budget in effect if we had a major devastation?
Well, I think let's look at the broad elements of when you speak about economic prosperity and certainly when you're trying to address fiscal deficits and debt, that there are 3 components, and this was discussed in the white paper when VAT first came around. It's revenue enhancement, it's expenditure control, and then ultimately growing the economy. And so before I get into the hurricane and what it would do, if we look, a lot of emphasis, previous administration and this administration, is around the revenue enhancement. The public is crying out for the expenditure control. And to a large extent, if you look at what was being said in the last year's budget, there was a whole bunch of unknown obligations that had to be satisfied, and so therefore there was this increase in the deficit above and beyond what they wanted or would have projected. When you come to this year, what you're not seeing is really how they are looking, and maybe not in the current year, but certainly going forward, the expenditure control and the downward trend. And yes, you do hear the comments, well, I've asked each agency or ministry to cut by 10%. But in reality, that's an arbitrary number, and that's a very abstract notion. That one of the elements when you look at the public finance management and the performance monitoring reforms, which is a program that was instituted or started by the governments a couple of years ago, was really focusing on program-based spending. So what it was saying was, I'm not giving an allocation to the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Defense. I am actually looking at what are the programs within these various departments, agencies, and ministries, and saying what is it that's necessary to fund them. But it allows me then to have a benchmark analysis, like, is it achieving the goal, and should I cut the expenditure? Coming back to the element of hurricane, when you put such tight pressure on yourself in terms of now this budget is really banking on the fact that I'm increasing taxes, but it is not going to damage economic activity. It is now sitting right on the edge in the event of any anomalous shock. So whether that be a hurricane, whether that be an economic downturn because of global affairs, we see the U.S. and North Korea, when they discuss one another, whether that happens. We saw the trade wars with the U.S. and China, which was a real threat that we have to monitor going forward. So anything that takes place that throws it off course. And so when you look at the budget and you present forward, you really have to be also saying, well, what's my sensitivity to other things taking place, so that the public has a general understanding that this is if all things goes according to plan. How often does that happen? How far off the mark will I be if something throws off?
I'm going to let you speak after we come back from the break, but we have just one soundbite before we go to that break, and I'll bring you back in, Michael Halkitis. Stay with us.
But this is stickler, man. I don't know what happened. How that could wait. That's too much.
12% too much?
12% is too much.
What do you think about the items they took it off?
Well, that should be a little better.
The Wake Up Bahamas show is back with more excitement from the Family Islands. We brought you Exuma with all of its beauty and amazing experiences. Now, Wake Up Bahamas is taking you to the big yard. Join us live from North Andrews, June 27th through 29th, as we bring you the best the Big Yard has to offer. From crabs to bonefish, ecotourism to agriculture, bush medicine to blue holes, and a whole lot more. Don't miss the Wake Up Bahamas show, June 27th through 29th, live at 7 a.m. right here on the ZNS Network.
If you've lost your visa, call the law office of Donat Russell Love PL. My full-service immigration firm can help you if you've been denied a visa due to deportation or removal, prior conviction or arrest while in the U.S., working without work authorization, or visa overstay. I may be able to help you get your visa privileges restored. Call my office today at 954-449-1833 or visit us at drusselllove.com.
I lived in fear for my life. I lived in fear for my children. I lived in fear of how I'd provide for them. I thought that he would change when he promised he would, and I forgave him every time he said that he was sorry. I became devalued as a human being until one day I ceased to exist as one.
Let's talk. Call the Bahamas Crisis Center's free 24-hour hotline at 328-0922. Sometimes a conversation can change a life.
Are your monthly bills coming in on top of your holiday bills? It's time for a change. Bundle your bills into one low-rate loan with Commonwealth Bank. Move your high-rate loans and credit card balances from other banks to a low-rate consolidation loan at Commonwealth Bank. Less stress, less to pay, each and every month. Plus, the chance to win $5,000. So make a change. Get a consolidation loan at Commonwealth Bank and pay less.
ZNS is everywhere you are when you download the new ZNS app. Watch our live channel to keep up with what's going on in the nation. News updates, we've got you covered. Tune into our radio stations with just a swipe. On the road, on the go, we're here with you. Available for download on the App Store and the Google Play Store.
Well, we're the Nutty Bavarian Bahamas. We specialize in glazed nuts, being cashews, almonds, pecans, and peanuts. Well, we're offering a 3-tier savings deal. It's 5% for the silver, 15% for the gold, and 25% for platinum members. You would call us at the number 698-2126, let us know what tier you're on, and then we'll work from there. So the discount will be applied to whatever you purchase from us. Normally the delivery time is within a day. You call your order in and then it's delivered the next day. But we wanted to align ourselves with a company that is as innovative as Alive. You know, they're a young upstart company and we just felt that we would want to be on board with a company that's doing big things in the Bahamas.
If you have a company and run the country as like a company and you hire the wrong management company, they run up the bill and you fire them, hire a new company, and the bill is still there. So the company have to pay for it. You understand what I'm saying? But people don't see it like that. They finding this as a way, as a media shower. But I know when the FNM been in power, they wasn't anticipating this because they don't believe in tax. But when I'm telling you, but when they see what they had to do, they had to shoot themselves in their foot.
What do you think about the items that have been relieved from that?
Well, I think they did that right because they promised that the bread basket item, they're going to do that for the overhill people, and they still trying to keep that in. Bread is kind of tough, but give them a little something. That's what I'm thinking.
Michael Halkitis, that man and the FNM and others think that you ran up too many bills when you were in office. You want to comment on that at all?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, we can see under the previous administration, we saw the deficits coming down. In the year of the hurricane, You know, there was devastation. Some places in New Providence without electricity for up to 3 weeks. The revenue suffered. You had to give exemptions. You had to go and clean up. You had to rebuild. And so you saw the deficit go up. Now, I will say this. The Minister of Finance said that he met a lot of bills. If the FNM were to demit office today, they will leave bills behind. It's a matter of managing your cash. I think we were not perfect in our administration, but when you look at, you know, deficits going down in every year minus the hurricane, you saw unemployment go down from 14.7% down to 9.9% when we demitted office. You know, 39,000 jobs created. These were the official statistics of the Department of Statistics. You saw the foreign reserves going up. And so I'm thinking, again, we're not perfect, but, you know, I think we did a creditable job in managing the economy. Unforeseen things do happen. And I think that was, had it not been for Hurricane Matthew, our projections had our deficit under 1% for the year 2016, 2017. We got devastated, and not only me, but if you look at reports from the IDB, from the IMF, all the rating agencies, they verify that Hurricane Matthew had a significant and devastating impact on the economy. So all governments would have obligations. It's a matter of, you know, if you're new administration coming in, either you agree with the policy and you continue it. If you disagree with the policy, then you cancel it. But you know, I don't believe that we left the you know, the FNM in any particularly a bad situation. We put in place a tax reform that was very well done. You know, when they came in, Bahama was on the cusp of complete opening. I think they should have given that an opportunity to filter through the economy and some of the other investment projects to take off. And so give the economy time to, you know, begin to speed up because everything was in train, and then see what the results of that were before you know, contemplate such a drastic increase.
Well, Gow and Bo, we know that the government has actually borrowed a lot already, and another 187 million for the next fiscal year. Yeah. Your comments on that?
Well, we firstly need a proper accounting and analysis of our debt over, let's even go back 5-6 years, because in each budget there's a allocation for interest payments as well as principal repayments. And so what sometimes gets confusing is when we look at budget deficits, we don't appreciate that embedded in that is some repayment of actual outstanding debt. And so when we look at the increase in debt, there's always this anomaly of saying, well, it doesn't quite add up to what was the deficit. And the reason being is because some of it is actually just replacing monies that we had already repaid back. Mm-hmm. Going to Mike's earlier comment, however, where the big question was where the VAT money gone, right? And the excitement that came around it. That demonstrates why we have a need for public financial management reform, meaning that the way we present information. Mm-hmm. So part of that initiative is the move to accrual-based accounting. Mm-hmm. And so what that accrual-based accounting will do is do away with what I would call this finger pointing that takes place every time there's a change in government as to who really ran up the bills. Mm-hmm. That ultimately your obligations will crystallize when you make those commitments. But also a part of accrual accounting is recognizing the assets that the country owns or the government owns. And we don't do a very good job of that because we have tremendous amount of infrastructure, airports that are world-class, infrastructure in various islands that have been improved over the years. We have government buildings and a number of productive assets, things like the bridge and other elements that have already revenue generating. When we look at deficits, we have to be looking at it as a household or a company. And really, what we should be saying is that we understand that we have to live within our means. Unfortunately, government has, if you will, the ability to tax and so therefore has an extended capacity to borrow than the individual or a company. But that doesn't mean that it needs to be taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the 187 million that's being projected now, we look at the debt that's there. The first thing to me is greater clarity in what the numbers mean. So let me understand what your opening debt amounts were, what was new borrowing, what were repayments, or what is my closing. Let me have an understanding of what the deficits represent, so when it looks at the recurrent aspect, so am I actually spending more than I'm taking in? And then I look at my capital initiatives. If government starts moving with a mindset of saying that I borrow for long-term assets, and long-term, if you will, productive investments, then you start to see the fruit, not initially, but over a period of time. And what I will come back to is really saying, when do we see what government has invested in economic expansion? So I go back to those same three prongs, that when we talk about economic growth, it is not going to be government that's going to drive economic growth, but government will facilitate it. It has to create an environment. It has to actually put its money where its mouth is in terms of saying, how do I bolster the private sector so that they can absorb, if you will,
so that average citizens could, well, have access to capital to spend.
To actually move up the chain and be able to feel that whilst, yes, there's a tremendous tax burden that has to be paid, their income levels are such that they are comfortable given that allocation to government.
This may seem like a no-brainer, but let's ask it anyway. Does a balanced budget really mean a greater benefit for the Bahamian people as a whole and on an individual basis as well? Because a lot of people I speak to, they said, you know, they don't mind the taxes. Taxes are cool once Bahamians will benefit greatly as a result of it.
The filter-through effect. If the government balances its budget, it's no longer borrowing money. If the government is not so much in the credit market, there's room for businesses and individuals to take advantage of borrowing. And if the government balances its budget, it doesn't have to borrow as much. There's less money allocated to pay interest and repay debt, and so there's more money available for other programs.
So it will be just how it's used subsequently.
Exactly,
right.
in my view.
Yeah, and I would concur with that, that ultimately, when we talk about a balanced budget, it is really appreciating what that means. It is saying that government has what they see as expenditures that they have to incur on an annual basis to provide for social benefits. So whether that be the security, whether that be education, whether that be healthcare, the infrastructure, etc. And so if they get to a point where there is a balanced budget, including the repayment of debt and the interest costs, then what it means is they can scale back what they're taking in from the productive side of society. So if you're able to do that, then that means that that money that would normally be paid in taxes goes into expansion. Not to glorify, but if you look into the U.S., a part of this administration in the U.S. is really saying, well, they want businesses to grow and expand so that in reality the pie gets bigger. And so the portion of the pie the government takes in can be smaller simply because it becomes a greater economic environment to operate in. And certainly in the Bahamas, you know, what the business community has been crying out for a long period of time is that there has been a tremendous amount of headwinds. And so when you're finally getting on board and have turned your sail to take advantage of the headwinds and now make it positive, that you don't want things disrupting that, because ultimately a government can only tax what its citizens are earning. So ultimately, if I don't have my businesses, employees, shareholders, and creditors all having an equitable return, it doesn't matter what rate I put it on, because 50% of zero is still zero. And so you have to look at it in terms of saying, if my economic base expands, then in reality, me imposing 22% is not as impactful.
There will have to be some more initiatives to help expand the economy as time goes on.
Well, I think and this goes back to the National Development Plan and why I preach that ultimately if we have a vision for what we want to be as a country for the next 25, 35, 45 years, what it allows is to say, well, where are the opportunities that have not been taken advantage of? So when I start directing resources, government is the biggest spender in the country, $2.8, $2.9 billion. A large part goes into salaries and emoluments and interest payments. But outside of that, there's a fair amount that goes into the productive society. And so from that perspective, it is around the bang for the buck. And I know that's becoming a cliche, but it is saying, if I'm already going to have to spend this, how do I make sure that it's an investment dollar and not a sunken dollar? That I am looking at when I make that expenditure, how does that create an opportunity? How does that give the private sector an opportunity to expand.
Michael?
Well,
Any comments there?
yeah, I agree. How do we target the spending? And back to the original comment is that, if you're having to spend the money, and if you have to borrow particularly, you want to be borrowing for. And we've not historically done a very good job of targeting the investment. How do I, if I put something here on this island, with the understanding that, okay, that will, cause growth to spring up around that. We need to do more of that.
Okay, good. We're going to take our final break, and we'll be back with more on the Reid Factor. Stay with us.
In reference to the what, I feel like if we go in the shop to buy an item, the owner, he just utilizing what we paying what the government takes back, but they're not taking nothing back from the owners, because really they're not getting taxed. They're not feeling it. So the small man is who really gonna feel that big jump.
What are the items that they took VAT off?
Listen, like everything that what they're doing now is they messing us up, man. Like the small man them feeling the pain of everything that what these people are doing in this country right now. Trust me. See, they're supposed to be looking out for the small man them, right? Not like they're looking out for the small man them no more.
Here comes the lucky guy who won a date with Fanshawn to his prom.
KFC got the big deal meal, freshly handmade every day for real.
Made fresh every day?
What I said, what you take? KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a real big deal. KFC got the big deal meal. Hey, it's a
Now that's a big deal.
Hey, it's a real big deal. Hey, it's a real big deal.
What amazing idea to go into the communities and into our world and into our country and into the homes of people and into the lives of outstanding and extraordinary people all over the country. I think that telling those stories, again, helps us to connect to the notion of okay, how can I live a better life? How can I be better? This is how this person achieved it. Where can I find common ground so that my life can match up as well? And so Ordinary People is an amazing, amazing concept, and I'm excited to be a part of the Ordinary People family.
This is the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is Commonwealth Bank. And no matter how, no matter where, no matter what, Commonwealth Bank is here for you. Commonwealth Bank. Everything we do it for you.
What you saying? Right here, man. Oh, not the cool one.
Busted! Don't you know you guys are breaking the law by not using your seat belts?
Man, Charlie, man, I'm using my seatbelt.
Wrong!
The seatbelt is not for opening your alcoholic drink. It is for saving lives. And by the way, for those of you who continue to drink and drive, we're on the lookout for you too.
Look has been at this location here for going on 5 years, but we've been in the Bahamas for a representation of something around 10 years. Our operating hours are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Sunday to Thursdays, and on Fridays and Saturdays we go until 12 midnight. For the initial rollout of the awards program, we're going to be offering the silver members $5 off. For the gold members, we're going to offer 50% off on a Bloomin' Onion. And for the platinum, we're going to give them 7.5% off their entire bill. We wanted to partner with Alive, in a new and innovative way to be able to reach more customers within our customer base and to also give our customers an extra incentive to come into our bar.
We're back in our final segment of the Read Factor. We're talking about the first show we're going to have regarding the budget, 2018-2019. Gowan Boat, president of the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants, and Michael Halkitis, a financial analyst and former Minister of State for Finance. The items which have had VAT taken off them, your comments on them, please.
Given that I was a part of the analysis that went into it, I strongly feel the government needs to separate what I would call political promises from policy making. And I strongly believe that whilst there may have been the promise to do certain things on the political platform, when in power, it almost serves as a contradiction. That I'm saying I need to raise the VAT level, but yet I'm introducing exemptions. And I think we need to give the benefit of the doubt to the Bahamian society to understand that I made those promises thinking that there were different circumstances. Firstly, I would like to point out that we need to get away from this F&M PLP government element, because governments are continuous. There are different parties that come in, but when you get into the administration, you're in the administration Absolutely. Of the Bahamian government, not a party government. And so you can always, yes, in your political sparring, throw reference to what one party didn't do over the next. But in reality, the outside world simply looks at it as being the Bahamas didn't do something. And so the time for that should be minimal, and ultimately move on to the business of the people as opposed to worrying about who did what and didn't do what. So when we start talking about what is the best thing for our country, I think it goes back to saying that we have to be what I would call an analysis-driven, decision-making society. That if we are calling upon our businesses, our individuals, to look at their circumstances and actually make decisions on that basis, we should not be expecting any less from our government. And so in my view, when looking at them, I believe that the information demonstrates clearly that giving exemptions to persons who do not need exemptions is not the best route to take. And all it does is increase the cost of living across other items. And so the very people that you are trying to benefit, you are marginalizing them further whilst you may not intend it, because you are basically saying the only thing they can buy are those items that you remove the VAT from, because you've now made the cost of everything else exponentially higher. And ultimately, you're saying to an individual, you will be segregated in the food store simply by the items you can afford to buy. And that's not a consequence that we should be promoting.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing is, other than the helicopters and the planes, the fact that the overall VAT rate was increased to 12% overshadowed all of the decreases in customs duties on other items that that tend to be beneficial. So I think that is one of the unfortunate things, is that yes, everybody was happy during the presentation about customs duties coming off and VAT coming off, but when the announcement was made that it's going to 12%, then everything else is forgotten, and there might very well be some opportunities in there with some legislation, for example, the continuation of the City of Nassau and the Family Island Redevelopment Acts, and more customs reduction that people can take advantage of. But I think it's just a bad feeling related to the 12% that people just focus on that and the planes and the helicopters. So the government has to do a job during this debate of emphasizing the opportunities that are available with some of the exemptions and the duty reductions.
That's good. I want to get into some other aspects of it, but before we do that, because I don't want us to close and not talk about it. Everyone all of a sudden gets a little crazy, and the issue of the valuation of the Bahamian dollar comes up again. How realistic is that?
This is where our politicians really get dangerous by the comments that they make. And this is one where actually we need the monetary policy makers to be more vocal in terms of understanding the separation between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Fiscal policy is what we're talking about in the budget. That's the government's fiscal affairs. So that's like your household expenditure coming in and out. The monetary policy is really talking about the policies we put in place in terms of our currency and the flow of money. So you'll hear the balance of payments, you'll hear the discussion about the supply of money, etc. The Bahamas has a pegged rate regime, and ultimately the way we peg that regime is by virtue of the reserves that we keep into the bank. put into the simplest of terms, we ensure that we have foreign currency to cover every Bahamian dollar in circulation. So ultimately, it says that, you know, if you walked into the central bank theoretically with a Bahamian dollar, you could walk out with a US dollar. And we do that to say that we can always back it by the hard currency, being the US dollar. Our reserves fluctuate, they go up and down, but the central bank will set out that they have parameters, and that's the reason why we have foreign exchange control. There's a lot of argument that says we believe negatively that there are going to be huge outflows if we disband with foreign exchange control, and that's a separate debate. And I think we need to have a mature and reasoned debate on that. But when we start talking about devaluation every time there's something negative, it is now putting, if you will, one, ignorance in the forefront, but secondly, paranoia and pandemonium. And we need to be careful with that, because what we don't want persons is really reacting negatively to something that is factually not correct. And I think when we start talking about monetary policy, we certainly haven't run into danger zones as it related to the reserves as they stand, but that's not to say that fiscal policy cannot impact it, and that is very true. As the government runs deficits and it borrows foreign currency, it will be a user of the reserves when it comes time to repay. So ultimately, yes, fiscal policy is not completely devoid of monetary policy. Mm-hmm. However, it is a case of saying that when we look at our monetary policy, the policies and instruments that we put in place are set there to protect it.
So in a few
and
words,
so
hardly likely that that will
not
happen.
in the immediate term.
Last year in April, I think it was, and again this year in February, the central bank came out and actually liberalized the exchange control regime, where they delegated to the banks more authority in terms of what they can approve in terms of foreign exchange transactions. So that was a demonstration by the central bank, who is responsible for monetary policy, that they are satisfied with the levels of reserves and in their ability to manage those to maintain the peg. I think the unfortunate thing is there will always be that, cry, as Gowan said, anytime there's something negative. I think the unfortunate, what we have to be wary of is when that alarm starts to come from high places, and people might tend to put more stock in it. So I think we just need to be cautious. I know firsthand that budgetary matters and finance matters on a national level, you attract a lot of criticism. And I think, we have to be careful that, in trying to deflect some of that, we don't cry wolf and, just make a situation, bring uncertainty into a situation where there need not be. The central bank is responsible for it. They've demonstrated that they're happy and they're satisfied in our ability to maintain it by their actions. And, if you look on their website, you'll see $1.6 billion in reserves, which is very, very substantial and more than adequate to maintain our position.
Let's talk about a couple of other things. The Digital Bahamas Initiative. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Obviously, something way forward.
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent initiative. It's a way forward. Back to VAT. When we introduced VAT, we made it totally digital, totally electronic, and that contributed to the efficiency. So I was happy to see, things like the customs modernization, the public finance management and reform program going forward. These are multi-year programs that totally endorse the continuation of it, because we think it'll make government more efficient, it'll save money, it'll help us to allocate our resources better, and only positive things can come from it.
And I think it's about modernizing government as much as society. That when we look at what we want or how the economy works, right now, if you leave home without your cell phone or your smart device, it's panic as soon as you reach to the first stop sign, because you're looking for it even though you shouldn't be.
And it's going to get much worse.
And so from that perspective, government have to react to that, and they have to look at how do they make things more efficient. So walking into a government establishment to pay bills or to settle your taxes, etc., those days just frustrate persons. And so it's a matter of moving into the modern age. And I think that those are the types of initiatives that I was speaking to, where that's investment in the growth of the private sector, because that's opportunities for system developers, application developers, as well as the others, to look at how do I support the government in the, if you will, new initiatives that are there. And I think going back to the Smart City Initiative, which is all roped into that, that ultimately it's a case of how do we get into if you will, the 21st century by virtue of the things that we do with the government, setting a good lead example in that regard.
Great. Now we've got just 2 minutes left, and I think we sort of covered the whole idea about public debt management, but only to say that, of course, the Commonwealth Secretariat is being employed to even help make that happen a little bit more. But let's give you your final thoughts on the way forward for the Bahamas and through the next fiscal year. We started with you, Michael.
I think it was a shocker, to say the least, to many people in the economy. The debate will ensue over the next few weeks, in both in the House and in the Senate, and it's incumbent upon the government to give the Bahamians a better picture of what their thinking is, what they can have to look forward to, and you know, the whole process dictates that this is not the end of it. So there is still time for a change of mind or an adjustment. It might be difficult, but you know, it's not impossible. So I think the government would have had time to get feedback, and you know, they can use this opportunity to give further clarification and to, you know, change course if necessary. But it's going to be a very, very interesting debate.
And I think the key is for government to demonstrate or build confidence in the society. And the way you do that is by clear articulation. Unfortunately, I think as Mike said, everyone has jumped onto the 12%. And more important, I think everyone has sort of heard the voices saying the lack of consultation, the lack of clarity on how things will work, and the short time frame in which it should be done. That government has to be mindful that persons look to them, if you will, as the guiding light. And so there has to be calm discussion. There cannot be what I would call theatrics. There has to be focused attention on these are the initiatives. And if it is not clearly articulated in the original communication, to use this opportunity to say, this is how we attack the three-pronged approach. We are building the economy. We are going to restrain our expenditure and make sure that it comes in line. And then we're going to impose these revenue enhancement initiatives. But we're not doing one at the expense of the other. We are going to have a balanced approach. And we are not going to fall victim to less haste, more speed, and try and do things too quickly and find that we have to do them twice.
Great. Well, Gowan Bowe and Michael Halkitis, thank you for being on The Read Factor. Good to see you both.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again on the next edition of The Read Factor.
You're watching the ZNS Network, the People's Station.
Tonight's You and Your Money is brought to you by Leno Corporate Services and Arawak Port Development. At the 27th Annual Bahamas Business Outlook, the focus was creating a world-class Bahamas. Panelists Gandhi Pinder, Keandra Gardner, and Janet Brown addressed the topic, creating a world-class Bahamas where small businesses can thrive. We begin with Ms. Gandhi Pinder, Vice President, Marketing and Public Relations, Gilgan Holdings.
We're talking about creating a world-class Bahamas where small businesses can thrive. And if any of you in here are small business owners, which I'm sure you probably are, or you probably train the staff that work for small businesses, you have some sort of connection to small businesses, you know that small businesses are the lifeline, the lifeblood of a community. They may not generate the same amount of money as large corporations, but are definitely a critical component and major contributor to the strength of local economies. They present new employment opportunities, serve as the building blocks of our community. And a small business is typically a business with 500 employees or less. We are just teetering on that number, and probably in a year or two, we'll probably be well over 500 employees. And there are so many things that have happened along the way, I guess, over the last 3 decades. So our CEO started out in the clothing business, La Rose Boutique, also moved into Bamboo Shack when the Gulf War took place, when she realized that it was time to shift. I think as we create world-class Bahamas where small businesses can thrive, we have to be able to know and discern the times, compete globally, and know when it's time to move, know when the season has come to an end, know when it's time to expand. And I know that we all want to grow. We're all, I think it's a good thing when something is growing. That means it's alive, and that means you're doing what it is that you're supposed to do. But you have to be very strategic when maneuvering through that process. Small businesses are usually more adaptable to changing climates, the economic climate, and this is due to the fact that small businesses are very consumer oriented. All right, so we all know that being in business isn't easy. Most businesses in the first 5 years would close their doors. And as I'm shifting through and moving through here, some challenges include proper staffing, finding the right systems, theft. I heard a study by the Chamber of Commerce a few years ago. I believe it was Edison Subner, and he said most small businesses in the Bahamas close due to theft. So as we move towards a world-class Bahamas where businesses can thrive, we have to have a culture of honesty and a culture of integrity and also ethics coupled with excellence. Being the millennial that I am, I posted a question on Facebook last night. I asked people what benefits and incentives are available for small businesses, and do you take advantage of them? The response was overwhelming. Most people said no. There are benefits? Wow, really? News to me. Someone said the only incentives I take advantage of as a farmer is I can bring things in duty-free, but the process is so tedious and long because the system needs work. Someone else said my first official business, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, offered incentives for me to open my business, but that was in Grand Bahama. Someone else